Directing traffic, gonna go deep, has a man deep, it is caught for the touchdown, Corey Davis.
What does he do? Attacks leverage. If he's outside leverage, he doesn't want you to beat him outside. So stem towards him, hold him outside, stamp outside. Drive face, full cell vertical, get into the blind spot, and he absolutely burns him. Corner is lost. He literally has no idea where Wilson is.
Long, fast, how he approaches the game, how dedicated he is to football. He's ridiculously good, man. You have to be ecstatic.
This is actual film. This is actual football talk. It's a football show. We're supposed to talk football, not storylines.
And you are watching another edition of Blewtt's Blitz. Solo. Now that we're in the off season, we're going to be doing it, or I'll be doing it every other week solo, as Kyle is going to take every other week off. And this one is to talk to you guys. Maybe I'll start doing some call-ins. Maybe probably not this week, but eventually once some stuff runs out that we really don't have a whole list of topics to talk about. But solo, it's not always going to be Wednesdays, Thursdays, whatever day works better for me. You guys will obviously see it pop up on your YouTube if you are subscribed, which is important. Turn on the notifications. But maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. It depends on what there is to talk about. And I'll save the topic type shows for Kyle in terms of like revisiting the top 25 and stat predictions, etc. Using a little bit different of a setup now. I got a new mic with a little bit of like a sound barrier thing behind it and all that. So if I sound weird, let me know and I'll try to fix it. But brand new mic, brand new setup. I was going to try to fix up the room a little bit. And then me and the wife got to talking. I might have to move it downstairs. So I got some green lights. I got new mic. So thank you for the super chats. Hope everybody's doing well. Obviously, a good weekend of football for not the actual football, but for the results. I don't know about you guys, but rooting against the Cowboys, rooting against the Giants. Even though I hate Eagles fans, my entire family is Giants fans. I'm the only Jets fan in my entire family. Can kind of consider my mom a Jets fan, I guess. My wife, okay, but like my uncles, the people who really, really love football, are Giants fans. So I get a ration of shit when I go to family parties. Even when the Giants weren't making the playoffs, it just doesn't matter to them. Obviously, because they've had the most recent Super Bowls and the most recent legitimate success. And we also had the Bills lose, and the Bills look pretty shitty. And it's nice to see Bills fans knock down a level a little bit because they're getting pretty cocky. So it's nice to see them basically get knocked down a bit, especially when they went all in for the Super Bowl this year with some of their guys that they signed. Obviously, Von Miller being hurt hurts them, but they don't have a lot of cap space. And I believe you have Poyer as a free agent, right? And then past that, I think Tremaine Edmonds is a free agent as well. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do. I was going to try to wear earphones. A little bit weird when you literally everything is muted. I can't even really hear myself talk. So I don't really like that. I gotta figure out maybe new earphones or just to wear it, half like this. But nonetheless, let's say hello to some people who are in here. Eagle thing, super early. The mystery option show. I'll talk about it a little bit. You got to come up with a headline, but we'll talk about some quarterback options. Obviously, one or two might have emerged. Some people talk about Fields. Some people talk about trading up. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers news coming out a little bit where it seems like he's going to play. Football doesn't seem like it's going to be for the Packers. If I had to guess, it seems like there's definitely better than a 50% shot he's on another team. We also have a little bit of Derek Carr stuff. I don't know. You guys may remind me, but this show is pretty much strictly just to talk to you guys for in the chat and spend some more time to each individual question. Again, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, hour and a half. Doesn't really matter too much, but I didn't want it to kind of go to every other week and not talk to you guys every week because then too much stuff stacks up. Eagle Fang talking about Bryce Young as this generational player. One, I think that term is overused, right? Like how many players every year are generational? Kyle Hamilton, generational. Tyler Linderbaum, generational. This receiver, generational. So that term is overused in general. We don't really see a ton of generational players. And what is the definition of a generational player? Every 10 years, every 20 years, an actual generation, which there'd be far less. But like once in a decade type player, I kind of associate with generational. Lawrence may be one of them, but then could he be one? Because when was Luck drafted? 2012? Correct me if I'm wrong. So could he really be a generational player? And he's obviously turned out pretty good, but Twisted, what's up, man? Joe, don't tease us. We're on the edge. I think we all kind of know. It can only be one of a few guys, but I'll get into it in a little bit once we run out of some things. Maybe we'll get into some contracts. Talk about some of that stuff. I suck with contracts. We have a writer, Rivka, who is good with the contract stuff, and she broke down, I think, the Aaron Rodgers contract in terms of what it would cost this year and next year, which isn't a lot on the cap, but in the years following, I think 25, 26, which you guys screenshotted it. So I'll read it to you guys verbatim. I still don't know what it means. He will really screw us in terms of the dead money. So Rodgers, while he may be your best shot to win a Super Bowl, in 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, it's really going to hurt. But at the end of the day, if you win a Super Bowl, I don't give a shit what they do in 2026, 7, 8, 9, 30, 31, 32. I'm okay. Like, obviously, we don't want to watch shitty ass football, but listen, at the end of the day, we haven't won, and we haven't made the playoffs in 12 years. Like, if Rodgers gets to the Super Bowl and you're confident enough in that and you want to make that run, awesome. But do you prefer that for more picks? In no way, to me, is it 2 first-round picks. You cannot trade that for a guy who consistently threatens to retire. Now, does he actually want to retire, or is that more of like a power thing? Like he likes to have the Packers and their fans a little bit by the balls because he's like egotistical. Maybe. Do I give 2 shits? It is ayahuasca. I don't care if he's doing mushrooms and smoking weed every day. If he wins his games, I don't care about what he does on his off time. But nonetheless, would you rather trade more for him? My general feeling is it's more, a second, third round pick this year and a future first potentially if he stays. And obviously it could be like Brett Favre where the Jets traded, was it a 4th round pick that turned into a 3rd that could turn into a 2nd with the playoffs and like a 1st and then the Super Bowl, something like that, but it's conditional. So I see it as a 2nd, 3rd this year and then a conditional 1st maybe next year if he plays or if they make the playoffs, whatever it may be. They're going to have to give a large sum of money to him. And the Packers, it's kind of like a tough spot because they're going to be giving up, obviously, they have a lot of dead money, etc. if they are to trade him. So you have to make it worth their while. So you're kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place in terms of trading for him because, could be awesome, could not be awesome, could retire, but the Packers have to eat a lot of dead money. But at the same time, you're assuming if they're getting rid of Rodgers, they're going to be rebuilding a little bit. Maybe not a full rebuild that the Jets have done for the last 15 years, 10, 12 years, whatever it's been. But maybe a little bit more of a reset in terms of their roster. Obviously some of those guys are old. Is it Preston Smith with them, right? He's getting a little bit older now, obviously. Is Campbell still on their team? I don't know if Lazard's resigning. David Bakhtiari's been hurt. So they got to reset anyway. So it's not like they're making a Super Bowl run. So they don't need that. What is it, like $20-something million in dead space this year, next year, something like that. Again, I suck with contracts, to be completely transparent. I don't understand it. I think he could, but it takes a lot of brain space to be able to understand all these off languages and all that stuff. And like people talking about Rodgers too, by the way, really quickly for the June 1st thing with like the trade designation. I know that there is a certain amount of money to him, or we can get. Basically, it's better for us financially if we trade for him after June 1st, but you can trade for a guy on February 12th. Is the Super Bowl February 12th? Whatever the Super Bowl is. You can trade for a guy on February 12th, let's just say, whatever day that is, with a June 1st or with a post-June 1st trade designation. So you don't have to wait until June 1st to trade for him. You can trade for him now and designate it as a June 1st trade, which, how does that make sense? I don't know. But regardless, like legal tampering. When is tampering ever legal? I don't understand it. Why not just make free agency earlier? But it is what it is. But I'm just excited because, and the playoffs are obviously fun to watch. But like I am so ready for the Jets to get a quarterback, as we all are. Whoever it is, to dive into the film of that, to dive into the offensive coordinator stuff. I'm not paying attention to anything. Like I know so much of my time. If you guys have been here for a little bit, like I think I did 8 or 9 hours on Zach Wilson in terms of film reviews. For the people who watched all of that, bravo. I appreciate you. I'm sure people only checked out a half an hour, whatever it may be. But nonetheless, that whoever the quarterback is, I'm doing a 2-season review, which will be easily over 100 and something plays. I'll do. And the OC, I'll also do him and his tendencies and third down tendencies, red zone tendencies, the offense concepts, what we don't like, what we do like. It'll be interesting to see exactly what the Jets do in terms of who they hire first, because like as Kyle and I talked about last week, if you hire an OC, whoever OC is, Joe Smith doesn't fit with Derek Carr. So now you can't bring in Derek Carr, but then you miss out on Rodgers. Like, so can you hire an OC before the quarterback? Did the Jets go all in for Nathaniel Hackett because they want Rodgers, and then Rodgers doesn't get traded because teams aren't giving up enough? So the Packers say basically, excuse my French, but fuck you. We're gonna keep you, threaten retirement, retire, whatever. I don't know if you can go all in for an OC if he doesn't fit the quarterback. So do you get a quarterback first to then attract an OC? Like, can you, like, to me, again, is this realistic? I don't know, but can you bring in Carr and then Carr attracts the OC? He's kind of in on the search with the OC. At the end of the day, the quarterback means more. Like, we want the quarterback to come into a system he's comfortable with, because you don't want to bring in Carr, let's just say it's Carr, and then have him have to learn a new system. Like, people can suck in new systems. It just is what it is. And I'm not saying I don't think Carr will ever suck, which, again, he gets way too much hate. Like, Matt Stafford was terrible before he won a Super Bowl with the Rams, because the Lions won one playoff game, right? Like, he's a shitty quarterback now, Matt Stafford. I'm not necessarily Carr up to the level of Matt Stafford. I think he's maybe a tick below him, but I'll always say he's in that 12 to 15 range. Maybe you can go through the quarterbacks in the NFL and just pick where he would be, like what the general range is, and you'll see he's like 12 to 15 range. So yeah, does he have his deficiencies? Sure. Interior pressure, he's not always hitting his feet. Sometimes intermediately he struggles, but in terms of a short passer, quick decision maker, a little bit underrated athleticism, good deep passer, a guy who's come back in multiple games. You question the mentality a little bit, crying, New York, all that stuff. I think the New York market shit's overrated anyway. Like, you're going to get a ton of, attention wherever you are. Like, listen, Indy's in the middle of nowhere, kind of. The city's actually kind of nice, but like Indy, Peyton Manning got plenty of hub, right? Like, it doesn't really matter where you are. LeBron James is pretty popular in Cleveland. I'm not comparing, Carr to LeBron James, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you're gonna get a lot of media anywhere. Now, yeah, our media might jab you a little bit more than other places, but I don't think it's anything astronomical. He's not gonna be able to handle it. He's gonna cower down to the New York pressure. Like, I don't see that necessarily, but and he's going to cost less. But let me get into the chat a little bit. Just want to kind of give just talk for at least a couple minutes. Let the chat build up. What is up? Sneakers to Boots. Appreciate you being here. Dakota, Marvin Guns, Joey Breakdowns, Murdog from Florida out there. Is Bryce Huff coming back? I'm hoping, from Dakota. I probably. Now, is he back in 2024? It depends. I guess it depends on his role this upcoming year, because they're going to tag him. Whether it be a second or first round tender. Again, I suck with numbers. $3.5, $4, $5 million, whatever it's going to be. They're going to tender him. I think if he was a hit free agent, the free agency market, he's probably making $7, $8, $9 million a year. So if you can get him for a first round tender at 5 or 6, whatever it's going to be, they probably do that. Now, if he comes in for that tender, okay, and he's a pass rush specialist and provides what he did for us this year, then great. But then going into next year, stacking up multiple years of showing that he could be a good pass rusher, he's going to easily get that $8, $9, $10 million a year. And if you don't plan to play him, there you go, in the run game, then you can't really necessarily play that, or you can't pay him that money. So, do they play him more against the run? I would assume so if they do what I'm thinking they do, which is getting rid of Carl Lawson. And at the end of the day, is Carl Lawson going to be a better player in 2023 than he is in 2022? To me, probably, obviously, because he was coming off the Achilles. He also had some type of like follow-up surgery to the Achilles pretty late into training camp or whatever it was. So he's going to be a better player. But with that being said, you're already going to be paying JFM. You're going to have to re-sign Quinnen Williams. The Jets don't have a D tackle on the team right now past Quinnen Williams. Rankin's gone as of right now. Thomas gone, who should be gone. Good guy, but he was terrible this year. Nathan Shepard gone. So they have a lot to have to invest back into the defensive line, just in terms of like filling out the roster and guys 6 through 10. So can they afford to keep Carl Lawson? Plus, does Quan come back? Does Quincy Williams come back? What's the safety situation? Who's on the offensive line? So can you pour all of that into defensive line when you have much bigger needs at linebacker? You have much bigger needs at safety. You have a massive hole at offensive line, especially if you're going to spend all this capital to bring in a quarterback You can't have a bullshit offensive line. If our offensive line next year is Dwayne Brown / Becton, Tomlinson, people just say, oh, we'll just draft the center in a second or third round. What if said center is not available in the second or third round that you're targeting because he goes earlier than you think he is, and then you're stuck with a scrap heap guy as a center, or even a rookie who might suck, and then AVT at right guard, and then Max Mitchell and a rookie at right tackle? Like, that's not good enough for me. So they got to figure something out offensive line. Again, whether that be saving money by cutting Lawson, cutting Whitehead, cutting Barrios, get a tackle. Get a legit tackle in free agency. Now, the list isn't great. I think Mike McGlinchey is like the best one out there right now, which, yikes. But you sign him, and then you have Mitchell, you have Becton, you hopefully draft the guy. Does Dwayne Brown retire? No, if he retires, I think the Jets save like $10, $11 million. If not, then he's going to be back on the team for that money. So you have Brown, Becton, Mitchell, and a big free agent. Then maybe you do draft, interior guy in the first round or two. If they trade back or whatever, I don't know. Again, the draft, I'm completely ignorant right now. I have no idea what's going on with the draft, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. I'm just saying they have a lot more needs at defensive line at this point. They also need a run stuffer at D tackle. They struggled with that this year. I thought they were going to bring in Linval Joseph. Obviously, he wound up signing with the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken. So they need a run stuffer in there as well for some rundowns, because the Jets, you saw it, and this is obviously a problem we have with the coaching staff as a general fan base. I don't think there's any fans who are really going to contest this, that we have problems with the amount of rotation that they do, and not only the amount of rotation that they do, but also the way they do it too. Like, you don't see, NBA teams, that's what I was compared to. Like, you don't see NBA teams take off, let's just say the Warriors of a couple of years ago. Like, they're not taking off Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry at the same time. You substitute one or two out at a time and kind of like supplement it a little bit. So the full rotation of the defensive line was frustrating, but you saw when Nathan Shepard and Solomon Thomas came into the game, they suffered a lot in terms of their numbers and just in terms of film. The run game, they got pushed around a lot. So they need a D tackle as well, plus re-signing Huff. So is Carl Lawson back? Probably not, but long way to answer it. It depends on, he'll be back this year. Is he back in 2024? I think it depends on obviously reproducing the way he produced this year, and then also how much do they play him in the running game. If he plays, what did he play this year? 30, let's just say 30% of snaps, 25. No, probably not even. There were some games he played like 7. Let's say he played 17% of the snaps. Does he play 40 this year and prove to be a little bit better in the run game? Obviously remains to be seen, but we'll see. Kev Chada, big supporter. Hey, finally catch your show. Peace, I guess. Hey, finally catch your show. Peace out. I don't know if my sound sounds good, by the way. Like I said, I told you guys to tell me, and then it's been 16 minutes of me talking to like 2 people. So we need Bryce for a long time. Yeah, we'll see. JFM could have been better, but he's still a beast. He's really good in the run game as an edge defender. The thing is with him is like, okay, yeah, his run defense boosts when he's outside, but his pass rush declines. So if you're paying a guy, you want him to be playing inside more than outside, especially if you're paying him to be a pass rusher, and that's where he's better as a pass rusher. But with how the Jets, manage their roster this year, obviously, they'd rather have JFM rushing from the edge and have Rankins inside with Quinnen Williams than have, let's say Jermaine Johnson, Clemens or Huff, which is a mistake to me. Play Huff more in general. I don't remember him being brutal in the run game, but they'd rather have JFM outside, Rankins inside than one of those other guys outside and JFM inside with Rankins sitting on the bench. Now, does Rankins get re-signed? I don't know. I'm hoping he does. He's an underrated Jet at this point. His first year at the Jets, he was not very good. Last year, he was better than people realized. Most people realized, at least. So I would like to see him re-sign. But JFM he's going to be back because I think they can get out of his contract next year pretty scot-free. This year, they still eat some where it's not really necessarily worth it. So I think if they're getting rid of one guy, it's Lawson. And again, I like Lawson. I think he's a solid player. And I was kind of said he's a $9-10 million a year player making $15 million. So does he bounce back to a $12 million, $13 million a year player based on play and make 15? Maybe. But I'm not necessarily willing to take that risk with the holes we have, not only at linebacker, at safety, at offensive line, but you have to start looking at, again, run stuff and D tackle. And I think another need is receiver. To me, you cut Barrios, listen, like, you can replace what he did very, very easily. He was terrible, pretty much everything he did, let's be completely honest. And maybe he bounces back to the mean, where he's still solid. But even coming off of his last year where he was so great, I was still saying he's worth like realistically like $3.5 to $5 million, and he got paid $7 million, whatever it was. So do you save some of that money for a backup slot, kick returner, punt returner who lets balls bounce over his head? I think you replace that fairly easily. But the problem with that is, okay, now you have, obviously Garrett Wilson, you have Elijah Moore, you have Corey Davis for right now. Again, people talk about cutting Corey Davis without really providing what you're going to replace him with because there's not much out there. And I'm telling you right now, going into the year next year, again, you cannot rely on the draft. Like, yeah, you could hope that a position or you think a position group is deep or something like that, but the draft is so unpredictable. Like, we all know what's going to happen, and then the draft comes like, holy shit, this. Like, we don't know. So you cannot rely on the draft for a starter, in my opinion, or at least you should not, ideally. Sometimes you obviously do. But you cut Corey Davis and you replace him with Lazard signs elsewhere. Jacoby Myers, to my knowledge, is more of a slot guy. So then Elijah Moore is displaced. So you don't sign him. Who is your other receiver? It's Elijah Moore, Wilson, Denzel Mims, Jeff Smith. I'm not comfortable with that. Even with like a mid-tier guy coming in free agency. So is he getting slightly overpaid? $10 million? I think that's what he's worth when he's actually playing. Now, the problem is he hasn't been playing a lot. So can he bounce back from injury? Because when he's on the field, he's worth it. Really good blocker this year. He did not have nearly as many drops as he did in 2020 one season. So he bounced back a little bit this year. But in general, how do you replace him? So let's see. All I'm going to say about the offseason is I'm ready to get hurt again. I'm assuming that means you want Rodgers. And then people compare the Rodgers thing to Brett Favre, but Brett Favre, we were 8-3. He tear his shoulder, his bicep, he tore something on his arm, and then we lost 5 games in a row. But Brett Favre was good for the Jets until he got injured, which no shit, he got injured. And then past that, he went to the Vikings next year, and correct me if I'm wrong, he threw like 40 touchdowns and like 7 picks. Like, he was really good with the Vikings the year after. Now, obviously, it's a different situation because the Jets are going to be trading for Rodgers in February, most likely, if it does happen, because you want to be able to figure out that contract before you go into free agency. And if he delays, then it is what it is. Like, I think you need to figure that out immediately. Like, you cannot say, hey, Carr, we're going to let you go down. We're going to let you go to, I don't know, the Texans because we want to take a risk at Rodgers. And then, again, Rodgers isn't here. Lamar Jackson gets re-signed. Carr is gone. And then we're left with the options of Jimmy G, who is he even attracted here now because we're not running the same system, or Tannehill, who's just said the Titans get rid of him. You're getting one of those guys who Tannehill and Jimmy G to me are still very lukewarm options. And you're left there with your dick in your hand, for lack of a better term. And we'll get into the mystery QB in a little bit, but let's say, Jets in the part. Yeah, I think the culture is changing. I don't think they're the same old Jets necessarily in terms of the locker room stuff. Kind of. But at the end of the day, like, you had receivers complaining. You had Mims ask for a trade. You had Moore ask for a trade. You had Garrett Wilson showing frustration on the field. You had Dwayne Brown throwing his hands up after some plays. You have people, you have the whole OC thing with Zach Wilson and obviously Michael LaFleur telling guys in the offseason that he was so much better with Flacco and with Mike White than he left, which is a shame to him. Like, to shit on Zach Wilson after year one, to open to other coordinators or whoever it may be, is obviously not a good look for him. And then apparently he was showing Wilson more tough love, which at the end of the day, like, do I want to say, and it's my mindset, like, it's football, grow, don't be a pansy ass, like, step the fuck up, be a man. Yeah, 100%. But when you have a second round pick and he needs to be coddled or treated a certain way, then you kind of got to treat him a certain way because he's your second overall pick. And you should know that coming into the draft, which obviously is harder with COVID shit to know exactly his mentality, but you can't just say, oh, well, fuck you, just adjust to me. Like, you have to adjust to your players, and certain players are treated differently. And Scott Mason play like a Jet, who obviously I do a ton of podcasts with. Like, he put out a good thing in terms of Phil Jackson, one of the better coaches in sports history, was known to coddle Kobe because Kobe was a little bit more, I guess, like, whatever, soft mentality, whatever it may be, which obviously RIP. And he was really tough on Shaq because Shaq came from a military family and responded to that. Like, you have to know how to try to treat your players. You can't just be, hard-nosed all the time. Now, if you're Bill Parcells or something like that, yeah, maybe a little bit different. Bill Belichick, maybe a little bit different. But when you're a 34-year-old OC, maybe you should cater to your players a little bit. So obviously a bad look for him. But in general, listen, there's players requesting trades. There's OC problems. Now we're looking for a big trade for our quarterback, and we lost 6 games in a row. So we'll see. The culture's changing. I think it has. It's not as bad as it's been, but it's not. Let's not act like it's all roses right now. The end of the season was embarrassing. The end of the season, the Jaguars, the Lions game, the Seahawks game, the Dolphins game, at least on the field product, we look like the same old Jets, right? And that's with more talent than we've had in the past. Like, we used to look like that, and we had Tremaine Johnson, Bless Austin, all these absolute scrubs on defense, no offensive line, Stephen Ridley at running back with David Nelson and Andre Roberts and all these people. Like, now we had Garrett Wilson. We had some talent. We had Elijah Moore. You have a really good defense, and we still like absolute balls. So, like, the end of the season was almost even more disheartening in terms of a coaching perspective, because at least they had the talent, and they still couldn't put up any points or do anything, create turnovers. Like, yeah, the defense was great. We forced barely any turnovers at the end of the year. Now, I get that offenses could play more conservatively against the Jets because the Jets' offense would suck. So you could be very conservative in terms of not having to throw that 3rd and 12 intermediate ball over a linebacker's head, because you could just check it down and live to fight another drive, because the Jets are going to put up 3, 6, 10 points in a game. So, nonetheless, Jets are better than Buffalo. Our defense might be, but yeah. First time watching your fountain of Jets knowledge. I appreciate that. 70? 70? I don't know what that name is necessarily. 70. I think I've seen you on another stream. Maybe it's when I've been on Ryan's, or when I've popped in like Green Bean or Buffalo Jet fan or something like that. But I appreciate you being here. And again, this one's just going to be me kind of rattling off stuff and talking to you guys, trying to hit the chat a little bit more, even though I'm 24 minutes behind. I still don't know if my mic is fine. Cocky Bills fans, the team failed to get a big game. Yeah, I might have deserved it a little bit, but after the Bills, when I was standing on top of the Jets bus that we go to the games in, and doing the "Let's Go Buffalo" chant to Bills fans as they walk by, which it is what it is. Got a couple of beverages in me, and it was obviously a big win. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll see where you are in February," or whatever they were saying. And it's really nice to see them lose. The Bills are definitely my least hated division rival. They're obviously creep up with more success, but Dolphins, Pats are never going to be taken over by the Bills unless something drastic happens in the next 20, 30 years. Dolphins and Pats are clearly over the Bills. So Buffalo's still a legit choker too. It's nice to see. Obviously, it's nice to see what's his face too, like Diggs coming out and being pissed at Josh Allen and stuff. I root for those franchises to burn down. Every other franchise in the Jets, I root to burn down. I root for the absolute worst for them. It's just how I root. I want no success for anybody else. I really couldn't care less about any other teams. Now, I'll root for other teams depending on who they're playing, stuff like that. But I want everybody to suck. I just do. I don't know. Art, what's up, man? That's Carpetbagger. Just the shock fist. I don't know. You're telling me it's Dak in terms of the quarterback options. I'm not saying anything yet. Let's see. Lawrence looked like Zach in the first half of the Chargers game. Nothing generation about that. Yeah, I don't agree with him being a generational quarterback. In terms of him coming into the draft, his offense was 50%. Don't quote me on this. 50% RPOs, read options, short throws, screens. It was not a pro-style offense at Clemson, so I wasn't as impressed as I thought I would be. I did peek at him a little bit. Obviously, I didn't watch too much because the Jets were never going to get him. But when I did watch, I did not see generational. I saw very, very, very good. Generational is a word that's thrown out way too much. Way too much. The only generational player I can think about in the draft, even the last 10 years, and do not give me the shit of, Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald wouldn't have went 10 or 12 or 14, wherever the fuck he went, if he was generational. It wouldn't have happened. Is Andrew Luck. It's the only thing. That's the only person I can think of. Correct me if I'm wrong. Has there been a generational, like a true generational player? Maybe you're talking about like Myles Garrett. Jadeveon Clowney was kind of looked at that like that, but I can't really think of many other guys. Put some people in the chat. I want to get into that. I want to see your guys' response to that. I'll catch up into the chat. I also want to get some of your guys' responses in terms of the in terms of your rankings for quarterbacks. Now, obviously, like would we prefer Lamar Jackson if he's healthy? Yeah, sure, but is he healthy? What's the capital you have to give up from? Do we prefer Rodgers for the next 2 years to Derek Carr? Yes, but what about the capital? What about the threat of retirement? The money he's owed versus Derek Carr could be here for 5, 6, 7 years. So I would like to see some people drop some of their options in the chat in terms of like considering the capital, at least what do you think is reasonable to give up for them, or what do you think the Jets will actually do? Like your 1 through 3, 1 through 5. I have mine for the most part, like my 1 through 6. I would say there's 6 options that I'm okay with. I would say 3 or 4 above definitely above 5 or 6. 5 or 6 to me is Jimmy G or Tannehill. Jimmy G is a product of the offense. He's still okay, but gets injured consistently. And I've been somebody who says that I think Tannehill is overrated. Even when he had his great year with the Titans, I still think he's overrated, but I still think he's in that 15 to 18 type range, which is a lot better than what the Jets have had. Let's be realistic. We've been scraping the bottom for how many years now at quarterback? Like, 2008, Fitzpatrick was what, a 20 through 25th best quarterback, and really that was because of Decker and Marshall more than him. He's just chucking up balls. Look at some of those highlights. The Giants touchdown he had, like he just chucking up balls. And then obviously before that, it was Pennington. But if you're a fan who like started with Rex, we've had a bottom 3 quarterback every single year for the last 12 years, right? Sorry, minus Fitzpatrick 1 year, right? But like it's been absolute dog shit. So it's just funny to hear Jets fans like, oh, Derek Carr sucks. We've seen suck. Derek Carr does not suck. You guys said it last week. 2 first-round picks for probably 1 year is too risky I don't know if it came out the 2 first-round picks thing, but at the end of the day, is it going to be 2 first-round picks? I severely doubt it with the contract the team has to take on, which Rodgers came out and said he's going to have to rework that. So I don't think it's going to be as much dead money in 2025, 2026 at the end of the day. But I think it's more like a 3rd and a conditional first or something like that. Maybe a second in the 2024 first. Obviously, if you're trading for Rodgers, you're really going to push for that first-round pick to be in 2024 versus 2023, because I'm telling you right now, if the 2024 pick with Rodgers is as high as the 2023 pick, and we're picking 13 next year with Rodgers, something went severely fucking wrong, and people are getting dropped. People are getting Rodgers, Douglas, Saleh, whoever it is. But if we finish at the 13th pick with Rodgers, that's something to think about. So conditional 2024 first, where you're hoping the pick to be 20 through 32, hopefully 32. Or never mind. I'm not gonna say that. I was gonna say like 31 because the Dolphins get a lot of picks suspended or whatever. But realistically, 32. But somewhere in that 25 to 32 range is obviously much less valuable than the 13th pick. So push for that 2024 first round pick, and then give like a second or third this year, whatever it may be. But 2 first round picks, I just can't. I can see the Jets doing it because Willie Johnson pushing for it. I can see the Jets wanting to do that. I don't think any team's really going to have to actually pay that, to be completely transparent. But even if you start getting into like the range of like a second and a first, a third and a first, would you rather trade that for 2 years, maybe 3 years of Rodgers versus paying, 10, 15 less $1 million a year for Derek Carr, who that could get you a starting left tackle, another first round draft pick, and obviously 5, 6, 7, 8 years instead of 2 or 3. So it's preference. I understand Rodgers. I understand the Carr thing. The Lamar Jackson stuff, I get it. Now, obviously, that's a huge discussion point in terms of the injury, the contract, the guaranteed money he's going to want, the franchise tag. Are they keeping him? Are they not? The OC. Like Lamar Jackson is a large block to unpack, and I think most likely he's back with the Ravens anyway, so I don't see him as a hugely realistic option. But for me right now, it's Rodgers, Carr. Which one's going to be a Jet? Anything past that's a little bit of a failure, in my opinion. How do they bounce back from it? Is it Minshew? Is it Brissett? So we talked about Andy Dalton last week. Then I'm going to lose it. So, does it make sense to cut Lawson and or Davis? If so, to sign who? BG the Kid, appreciate the question. I talked about Lawson before. I think it's to supplement the rest of your roster: D tackle, linebacker, safety, offensive line, receiver. With Davis, though, I don't like Lawson. You can afford to cut him. You're bringing back Huff. You're expecting a jump from Clemens. You're expecting a jump from JJ. So I don't think you have to replace Lawson necessarily, like 1 for 1. You cut Davis, you got to get a receiver. You cannot go into the season. You cannot go into the draft with just pretty much, as of right now, Barrios, Wilson, and Moore. That's just not good enough in today's NFL. So you have to replace him in free agency. And who's out there? Again, Lazard. Where's Lazard going to be without Aaron Rodgers? And still, he's not as good of a player when on the field as Davis. In the past, Jacoby Myers, does he fit? Does he want to play here? He's a slot guy, mostly, to my knowledge, when I watched him. Elijah Moore should be in the slot. So, square peg, round hole, instead of getting Davis, who's a good blocker, and who is, I still think he's a decent starting receiver, and starting receiver to me is a top 3 receiver, since 11 personnel is more often used, and it's not, that's used more than 12 or 13 or whatever. So starting to me is a top 3 receiver. I still think he's a decent starting receiver. So you can't just cut him and say, oh, well, we'll see what happens in the draft. That 3rd round pick might work out or he might suck. So let's not go into the season with a complete unknown as a starter, considering you're most likely going to bring in a high capital quarterback and just, hopefully his weapons are good enough. Like, no, let's surround that quarterback. I'd rather take a hit more on defense this year and lose a linebacker, lose a safety, lose a defensive lineman to surround said quarterback with all he needs to potentially win. And I get that a lot of that has to do with defense as well. And part of the appeal for quarterbacks to come here, stability, all that stuff, we can talk about that. But it's like, put up 17 points a game and we're most likely going to win. But with that being said, you still need some talent at receiver in today's NFL. Wilson, Moore, question mark is not good enough going to the draft. Now they draft, they sign a big tackle and they get Smith and Nigba, whatever his name is, from Ohio State. Okay, now we're talking. But who, by the way, I haven't studied him, but every time I watch him, the dude is a monster. I don't know how he did this year necessarily, but when I watched Garrett Wilson and Olave and Fields the year prior, I think was he a freshman when Fields was his last year there? I think he was. Dude's an animal, so it's lost in saying. Conditional 4th. Yeah, I think Favre was a 4th that was a 3rd with a certain amount of playing time, 2nd with playoffs, or 2nd with Super Bowl or something like that, or maybe it was a 2nd for playoffs, 1st for Super Bowl. But I see Rodgers' pick, at least part of it, being conditional, because you can't just say, hey, a 1st and a 2nd, he retires, and you traded a 1st and a 2nd for 1 year of Rodgers. Realistically, you can't do that. Obviously, I'm pretty sure that every Jets fan in here, 192 people, which I appreciate. If I told you, hey, 3 first-round picks for 1 year of Rodgers winning a Super Bowl, we're all doing it. But it's obviously not guaranteed to be stupid. So let's see. I'm all in for Rodgers for a deal like that. 2nd this year, conditional 1st. And I think that's probably a little bit too much. My feeling is like more like third and a conditional 2021 1st. But I have a tough time giving up this year's 1st and like a 2nd or 3rd. To me, at that point, you go to Carr, who I think is good enough to win with. And people say, no, he's not. He's never won a playoff game, blah, 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 blah. Like, we've seen Tannehill get pretty far into the playoffs. We've seen Blake Bortles get pretty far into the playoffs. We've seen Mark Sanchez get far into the playoffs. We've seen, plenty of guys who are not, you don't need to be elite, but you need to be above average. Now, if you have a defense that's top 5 and some good talent around Carr, I think you can go far. Now, people will say, oh, he never won a playoff game, all this stuff, quarterbacks or wins or a quarterback stat. Again, the only thing I can say to dispute that is we're 5-2 with Wilson. Or wins or quarterback stat. Like, no, you can have a team too. The team is important. I think you can win with Carr. I do. He's never had above the 20th, 21st ranked defense his entire career. And yeah, he played with some good guys this year, but Renfro was hurt consistently. Waller was hurt consistently. And years prior, I know in his early, first 2 or 3 years, he had Michael Crabtree and Cooper. But then years past that, once they traded Cooper and Crabtree retired or wherever he went, you had like Jared Cook as a top tight end and Seth Roberts and all these absolute scrubs. So you put a quarterback, a developing or a quarterback who consistently has coaching changes with balls receiving core and tight end group with a shit offensive line with a shit defense. He doesn't win playoff games. Well, no shit. Look at his team. A quarterback's not going to. There's not many quarterbacks who are going to drag the Raiders with what Carr experienced to the playoffs and a bunch of playoff wins. Now, could Mahomes? Sure, but again, there's only one Mahomes. There's only a couple of elite quarterbacks, and then there's the group 4 through 12, 15. Now maybe you break up into multiple groups. Like maybe it's you have like Mahomes, tier of his own, then the Joe Burrow's, Herbert's, Josh Allen's another tier, and then below that it's like Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, whoever else we're gonna talk about being 5 through 10, and maybe there's another group like Kirk Cousins, Dak, Derek Carr, that's in that tier 3, up to like 16 quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah, something like that. But I think you can win with a decent quarterback. Again, we made the AFC Championship game twice with Mark Sanchez, who I'm not going to say is decent. Jimmy Garoppolo was in the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say he's at best decent when he's healthy, but I think that's more of a product of the system. But still, you build enough around him, you can get to the Super Bowl. They almost won that game. Again, Stafford, he won one playoff game with the Lions, but he sucks, right? Stafford sucked his entire career, or was it maybe a little bit of what the Lions put around him? So obviously there's a gray area. It's not, he didn't win a playoff game, he sucks. Like it's partially his fault. Yeah, sure. He's not great, but he's solid. He's definitely solid. Caden, what's up, boys? Here for an end to the quarterback carousel for a couple of years. Getting tired. We're all tired of it, Caden. I don't know how long you've been a fan. It's almost like I feel like with the quarterback stuff, like new fans and old fans, not necessarily on equal footing, because the Jets haven't had a real legit quarterback, since Namath. But if you're a new fan who's only been here for a decade, like you've seen absolute balls. Like at least older Jets fans, you had the 2000s with Pennington, and a couple of different guys in there who were decent, at least decent, but fans the last 10 years, like Jesus. And that's pretty much where I've been. Like, yeah, I was a fan, like in the mid 2000s and stuff, but it's more of like a casual fan. Like I'm watching the games and stuff, but I didn't know what's going on. Like I went to games, but did I know what was going on? Not necessarily, but like since like being, lack of a better term, balls deep, like into this stuff, since I think I started podcasting like, I don't know, 2013, maybe 13 or 14. Man, it's been bad. And like a diehard fan since probably I would say about 06, 07. And yeah, Andrew Pennington, the Favre year and stuff, but obviously the Favre year was not great. So, Rodgers never going to choose the Jets when he can have the easier choice to be MVP with other teams. Well, yeah, like sure, but what teams? Like we could talk about this team, that team. Like okay, the Saints, the Bucks, whatever. But a lot of these teams, you look at what they're dealing with in terms of their cap situation. How many of these teams can really afford Rodgers? People talk about the Titans and the whole AFC thing. Like, oh, he's only going to trade the AFC. Listen, teams, they're going to come out and say, we want 2 first-round draft picks. You're not going to come out and say, yeah, you know what? We want that, but we'd accept a first and a fourth. Like, no, you're going to try to get the most you can. Same thing with the NFC thing. Like, if a team in the NFC blows them out of the water versus an AFC team, they're going to take the NFC thing, the NFC trade package. Most likely, do they prefer to trade to the AFC? Sure, but is it something that they're not going to do? No way. NFC team, if the Saints offer a first and a second and the Jets are offering a first and a fourth, maybe trade them to the Saints. Now, obviously, that's a bad example because they're at $50 million over the cap, but you get what I'm saying. Now, if the AFC thing was true, people mentioned the Titans, the Raiders, the Jets. The Titans, and I know I believe he has a house in Tennessee, but he has millions of dollars. He has houses in plenty of places, I'm sure. But with Tennessee, like, what do they have on that team that really is going to attract Rodgers? Their offensive line is on the downtrend. I don't think they were very good this year at all. Their offensive line. Henry's going to break apart eventually, but still, even if he's still great, okay, awesome. It's Henry. The receiving core is Treylon Burks and Robert Woods. Okay. Their defense has Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry, Bayard, or is it? I think it's Bayard. The safety, Kevin Byard. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation of it, but okay. Like the Jets are a better team than the Titans, other than quarterback. Obviously, taking Tannehill over what we have, but that's not very attractive. The Raiders are attractive. They reunite him with, obviously Adams and Jake was back, Waller, etc. But still, like I don't know if there's a lot of clear-cut options that are better than the Jets. You retool the offensive line a little bit. You get some guys healthy. And this year, if you have Rodgers, Kev, like you know what it is. Like we're winning at least 10 or 11 games, right? At the bare minimum. Like you're not losing any one of the New England games very, very easily. You're not losing the Lions game, in my opinion. You're not losing the Dolphins game. That's 4. Now it's assuming he's healthy, which for the most part you can with Rodgers. 3 or 4 wins. We're talking about a 10-11 win team easily. Now we could discuss, the Ravens and some other games we lost. The Seahawks game that we could have easily won. So how far are the Jets away from the Super Bowl with a really good quarterback? And is Rodgers still an MVP guy? Like Rodgers was he back-to-back MVPs or running up for MVPs in 2020, 2021? Yes. Did he fall off a little bit this year? Yes. He also had a pretty bad team around him for the most part in terms of receiving core. Now, can I expect him to be what he was in 2020? No, not necessarily. I still think he's a top 5 to 10 quarterback, though. I still think he's pretty damn good. I just don't think he's MVP level. But you put Carr on the Jets this year, they might still be playing right now. We competed with the Bills with pretty much nothing. Mike White was decent I know Zach Wilson was decent against the Bills the first game. We're still talking about 14 for 22 for 130 yards and a touchdown, whatever it was. Mike White was decent against them in the first couple of drives, and then he got his fucking ribs demolished by Matt Milano, and then he sucked after that. And obviously we had a couple of plays with Flacco where Flacco came in and had a pick and a fumble. It was 2 out of his 3 plays or something like that. Or maybe it wasn't a pick and a fumble. I think it was a fumble and missing Conklin wide open in the seam. So, let's see. Fire Sports, who's relatively new, and I appreciate you being here. You were in here last week. What does a perfect realistic offseason look like for you, Joe? Carr and a wide receiver while drafting offensive line, safety, linebacker. I know a lot of people like Ryan and a couple of buddies I have on the Jets world do their perfect offseason. I don't really like doing. If it's my full-time job, I would definitely do off-season videos and shorter videos. One of my end goals, one of my recent goals, one of the things I want to do in the near future is to make shorter film reviews, shorter, more condensed film reviews, along with the other longer film reviews. But if I was to do a film review, let's say 220 people, fucking awesome right now. Appreciate all you guys. But how many of you guys watch the film reviews? Maybe 30, maybe 40. But if I was to make a video, top 3 strengths, break down a play or 2 of the top 3 strengths for each strength, break down again, 2 or 3 plays for each. And then the weaknesses, show a play or 2, make it flashy, make it have more graphics. People like that shit more. I don't have time for it. But in general, I've seen the people do the off-season stuff. It's really hard to say because in a perfect off-season, we land all the guys we want, and it's never going to be perfect. With that being said, to me, most realistically, it's Carr, a tackle, whether that be McGlinchey. Let's just say Carr, McGlinchey, Dwayne Brown retires. You can't get out of Tomlinson. You re-sign McGovern. So then you go into the draft with McGlinchey, McGovern, Tomlinson, ABT, Mitchell, Becton, and then hopefully a guy in the first or second round. Let's assume Carr costs a third. Defense, you re-sign Quincy. Quan, in my opinion, is most likely gone. Let's say you can re-sign him, though. You get Quincy and Quan back. Okay, I don't think that's great. But with that being said, you bring those guys back. You draft a linebacker developmental guy, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. You have Hamza back there. You have Sherwood developing. It's decent. And then at safety, again, who are the guys out there? Realistically, do I think they cut Whitehead? No. Would I do it? Sure, but you have to have a backup plan. You can't just cut Whitehead and say, "Oh, well, I hope Tony Adams and Ashton Davis work out." So ideally, do they get I don't know who's out there. Do they get 2 new safeties? My most realistic or my most ideal offseason, yes, but realistically, Whitehead's back, and you get a free safety again, second, 3rd round, or you sign a guy. I don't know who's out there right now. Is it Jaquiski Tartt who's out there? Is Jimmy Ward available? I know Poyer's out there. I know Bates is out there. Can you afford that with a quarterback with offensive line? Most likely not. Now, the Jets do have a little more flexibility than some people realize in terms of upcoming years. Quarterback obviously diminishes that. They don't have a lot of cap space right now, but in 2024, they're projected $100 million in cap space. So you can move stuff around. But I would say retaining the linebackers, getting an upgraded safety, whether it be through the draft or free agency, getting McGlinchey or something like that at the minimum. And then that kind of allows you some flexibility in the draft to not necessarily have to draft a guy at 13 if you have a starting right tackle. But you want to develop a guy behind Mitchell at the bare minimum. Resign McGovern. McGovern, people are going to talk about let's replace him. Again, how? People like to say, cut this guy, replace this guy without the actual way they're going to do it. And again, if you're going to be ballsy and cut McGovern, or not resign McGovern, not resign McGovern, and then you go into the draft and you love player X in round 2, and then player X is gone in round 2, and then you're drafting a 3rd round center or 4th round center. or Carr is gone, so you're drafting a fourth round center to be your starter, or some guy with a scrap people, great. You didn't want to pay him over $10 million, maybe $2 or $3 million over what you value him, but you better have a replacement, because you don't, and you're bringing in a quarterback. That quarterback's not going to be happy. And I'm telling you right now, Carr is not going to like interior pressure. Neither is Rodgers. So you better not fuck around with the offensive line, and relying on the draft for your starter is quite foolish to me, especially on the offensive line or offense in general. The Jets, now, could you rely on a safety? Okay. Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, is it going to be much worse than Joyner? No. So if you're relying on to draft a safety in the first 3 rounds, and that's your plan, and your backup plan to that is to sign a scrap heap guy at the end, there will be a safety who's a decent or who's at least up to par with Joyner starter, which I think there's going to be even better than that after the draft. So if your plan is in the draft to get a guy, okay, get a guy. If you miss, unfortunately, shit happens. You upgraded somewhere else, and you sign a guy for $2-3 million on the scrap heap. You cannot do that with the offensive line. You cannot do that with receiver, especially if you're going for it and you're bringing in a big-time quarterback. Or center. Like, we'll get a guy in the 3rd round. Okay, cool. Yeah, I hope he works out. I hope he's there, because that seems really fucking foolish to me to just say, okay, we'll get a guy in the draft, because the draft works out exactly how we want it to. And people who we think are going to work out in the draft work out exactly how we wanted them to. And I'm not saying he's necessarily a terrible player. I would have to study him more. I like Bradbury, Garrett Bradbury a lot from NC State, the center a couple of years ago. Thought the Vikings were a pretty good fit, and he's struggling. It happens. You're obviously not going to be 100% in the draft. If you're 50%, you'd be an NFL GM, but you're not. I know a lot of people on Twitter and on YouTube are, because they're Monday morning quarterbacking and their takes aren't anywhere out there. But nonetheless, it's like you can't rely on the draft for a starting center. That'd be pretty stupid to me. I hope would be the pick for Rodgers. Let's see. Sorry. Josh Allen is fun to watch. He's good. Yeah, I think he fell from elite category this year. I think he was. I think it's prior to this year, it's Mahomes, Allen, Burrow. I think it's now probably Mahomes, Burrow, Allen. So and I think he fell that elite category. This podcast was getting expensive. Joe had to make some cut. Kyle's been cut. No, I ordered freaking light bulbs. I don't know how it's going to look, but I ordered light bulbs for the light back there, like green ones, and the part to screw into the light's too big. So I'm going to put some light bulbs up. I got some decorations and stuff, but I have to move downstairs because eventually this is going to be a baby's room. So I had to move downstairs. I got some green strip lights and all that stuff. I'll put that up to make it a little bit more nice looking. So let's see. Imagine if we would have drafted Fields or Jackson. Yeah, it would be much different right now. I'm not putting Fields into the Lamar Jackson category yet. Now I know Fields is, he's a good runner. And I understand that I'm going to say, and there's a rebuttal to this, that he wasn't as good of a passer this year. He still struggles in that way, or in certain ways as a passer. Now, with that being said, he's throwing to a bunch of scrub receivers, so I understand that hurts his development as a passer. But he's not in a former MVP candidate. He's not in that category with him, so I wouldn't lump them together. And it's gonna be interesting to see what the Bears do. You have Bryce Young there. Do they trade Fields? It's a hard spot for them, because what if they're like, we're kind of lukewarm on Fields. We didn't draft him. They brought in a new GM, right? Or they're going to. I don't know if they signed him yet. But he's not your guy. So could you trade him for a late first, whatever it may be, and draft Bryce Young? It might happen. It might legitimately happen. It's a really interesting situation, because I don't think Fields is in the situation right now where you're sold 100% he's a franchise guy. I think he had a good year, but he's also taken some shots. And obviously the biggest appeal to him is running. And Lamar Jackson's a guy who's a little more agile and will slide and run out of bounds more, where Fields is trucking motherfuckers. So can you rely on that for 4, 5, 6 years? Or when you're in the spot at number 1 for the Bears, do you grab a quarterback there, to get that obviously a couple of years of flexibility in terms of, the salary cap, and to have your guy, because if Fields doesn't work out and you skip on Bryce Young, and Bryce Young's a savage in a couple of years, how they can feel about that, So it's at the least a conversation for them. I guarantee that it's not locked into Fields is our guy at this point. So Olsen is the best option for whatever quarterback we find. Kind of adjusted that, but I like Olsen as well. I know he interviewed with the Chargers, which is probably the most attractive job right now, because you have Keenan Allen, you have Mike Williams, you have Austin Eckler. And even with the Chargers, and this is kind of lumped into the Jets as well a little bit. But in general, you have a very solidified offense there. Now the Jets could obviously step up a level if they get, obviously, Carr, Rodgers, then it becomes a lot more attractive than it is right now with Mike White and Zach Wilson and whoever else, Shrevler. But something you consider with the Chargers is like Brandon Staley. I'm surprised he wasn't fired this year. But you look at that situation as Olsen or as an OC, and you say, okay, well, if we lose, but I'm confident in myself, and it's because of the defense, but our offense is balling out, maybe they are the new head coach. Same thing with the Jets. Like let's say you bring in Carr and the offense is really good, but the defense kind of downturns and we're shitty again. We're losing because of defense and clock management and all that stuff. And Woody Johnson sees, really good offense, defense sucks. Do they hire the OC? So that's obviously not something you're going to say like, that's the primary draw to the Jets job, but something you consider. Like if I have confidence enough confidence in my offense with Breece Hall and with Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, etc., to be very good, maybe they do fire the coach. And then I'm the new head coach. But in general, I think, okay, you have faith in yourself. You take the job. Now, if you're coming to the job with Zach Wilson, you're starting quarterback, much less attractive. But Derek Carr, have some faith in yourself. Like, you should be decent. You put up 17 points a game. That's part of the draw as well. You're probably going to win. Now, with that being said, defenses and their year-to-year track record of success, like sustained success with defenses, it definitely waves or varies a lot. And it could with the Jets a little bit. Their defensive line is good. The corners are good. But if you've been here for a while, like we talked about consistently, how to attack the Jets, linebackers and safeties, and they started doing that later in the year, and that's how the Pats moved the ball in the Jets. The entire first game was linebackers, safeties, and making those guys make tackles in space and make quick decisions. You could be fast at Quincy Williams, but again, if your brain's not up to par in terms of how quickly you process the 2 to the 3 to the 3 to the 4, the fast to the flat, guys going vertical, matching underneath them, matching with inside trail to the safety, all the shit you have to do in the NFL, from hundreds of different seemingly cover 7s and cover 4s and quarters and zone matching and man matching. Like, there's so many defenses that you have to think so much. And then also while being in the box for the run game, so you're processing, okay, did the 3 release vertical? Are we playing a thumbs cover 4 where if the safety is going to look to rob the 2, and I'm going to have to maybe get on top of the 1 or inside of the 1 if he could send the number 1 because of the number 1 corner because he's playing a mod defense where it's only vertical. But the 2 was taken, so I gotta try to pick off the 1. Like, there's so many different things you might have to do as a linebacker. So yeah, he might be fast, but how is his processing? And I think he's slower on the processing stuff. Was I thinking about thumbs or switch? Sometimes I get them confused. Where they're looking to rob the 2, and then the linebacker could drop to the 1. But nonetheless, I'm not getting into all that stuff now. Now, right after the show, I'm going to go in my notes again because like there's so many between thumbs and switch and stubby and stump and red 7 switch, and then there's different switches. I know 2 different switch defenses of where the safety is more of like a curl to flat, like sky type defense, where a switch defense in a 7 is more about switching the 1 and the 2. And some different rules for fast to the flat. It's like there's. I listen to obviously I listen to coaching clinics and stuff like that, and like I'll be listening, and I'm like, I just need like a mental reset, right? I pause the podcast for like 5 minutes or the clinic for like 5 minutes. I'm like, I know nothing, and now I'm more confused about questions or things I thought I had answers to. I don't know anymore because I'm like, there's just so much. There's so much, but that's I'm trying to do. Continue to progress in the film aspect and really have good knowledge of what I'm talking about, because there's plenty of people out there who have no fucking idea what they're talking about in terms of anything. Even you say the most basic cover 2, what is it? I don't know. Yeah, it's 2 guys high. Okay, yeah, and what else? So when you start getting into the thousands of different coverages within coverages, different rules between man match and zone match and straight man and zone dropping and or spot dropping. Let's see. What are the odds of the dark timeline on missing Carr, Rodgers, Garoppolo if we slow play the OC search? I'll be depressed. The show is gonna be bad if we miss out on Carr, Rodgers, Garoppolo, Tannehill, etc. Which I guess I can talk. So the dark horse candidate who I don't really necessarily see happening is Prescott. Somebody mentioned it before. I could see it happening if the Cowboys are at a point in their timeline where they don't think they can win with a Prescott. With it being said, the contract, I believe they have to take out a lot of the dead money if he was to be traded. But I believe it's like $29 million for the team trading for him this year. And then in 2024, it is like $32 million. So you're looking at about, a little bit over $50 million for 2 years of Prescott. Do you resign him long term? I don't know. But I'm not talking about him as a primary option. I want Carr. I want Rodgers. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's a pipe dream. But would you rather have Dak Prescott or who's 29, 30 years old? Would you rather have Dak or would you rather have Garoppolo? Would you rather have Dak? Would you rather have Tannehill? To me, he's easily option 4. Now, do they realistically move on? I don't know. I still think he's in that 10 to 15 type range. But with all that being, let me see the top quarterback, because people are going, oh my God, top 10. Like, let's see some quarterbacks in the top. And just so I can think about it. I don't have to think about it off the top of my head. So let's see, like, where'd you rank Dak? So is there a list I can go to that make it easier? Power ranking quarterbacks. Mahomes, okay, obviously, right? Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Hurts, Herbert, right? We're at 5. 2 is at 6 on this list. Who knows? So okay, 6 is Tua with an asterisk. That's Dak Prescott is 7. Now again, did he fall a little bit this year? The playoffs weren't great. Again, do not be a victim of the moment. He's better than what he did in that playoff game. Trevor Lawrence is better. Okay, so let's flip him for 8. Lamar Jackson is better. Let's flip him for 9. He's the 9th best quarterback right now. Geno Smith, is he gonna be better next year than Dak Prescott? If you had to hit your back into one guy, Geno or Dak? Dak has a lot longer of a track record. Aaron Rodgers, better. Okay, sure. We're talking like 11th, 12th now. Kirk Cousins, you're down on Dak. Okay, fine. He's better. We can say he's better. Is Daniel Jones better? He's 13th on this list. Is Tom Brady better at this point? I don't know. Is Jimmy G better? Is Kyler better? So you're talking to him about Zach in that 10 to 15 type range, just like Derek Carr, just like the Kirk Cousins of the world, just like the Genos of the world for a year. Like, could you win with Dak? Yes. Now, if you're trading for him, I don't know what it would be. Let's say a 2nd round pick for Dak for 2 very controllable years of his contract. Is that enough for the Cowboys? I don't know. But I think it's something that's possible depending on how they see their roster. Are you resigning Pollard, who's got an injury? Are you resigning Zeke? How far can you get with him? I believe Dalton Schultz is on a franchise tag, right, at tight end. I don't think he got signed. So where's your offense going? Where's your team going? Now, could the Cowboys in their market survive with a lower tier quarterback? Obviously depending on what they do in the draft. I don't know if they're going to survive with a lower tier quarterback. Just because of the market, you kind of like need a big guy, and obviously Jerry Jones is not going to necessarily want to give a guy away. But I see him, obviously, considering the price tag would be realistic in terms of trade capital. He's my 4th option. Unless somebody's going to convince me that Garoppolo or Tannehill is better, I'd rather give up capital for Prescott and see where it goes. I think you can win with him. I don't think the Cowboys. It's just they reached a point where I don't think they're going to go far with him. But interesting. It's interesting if they're thinking about trading him. I'm not sure if they are. It's more speculation than anything. This is something that I'm not going to call it any websites, but certain websites we're a thing about. We're not necessarily going to, or I'm not going to. But interesting to think about. Huff will get a 2nd round tender for about $4 million. I think the 2nd round tender is about $4 million. Was the first like 5.5, 6, something like that. But I don't see a team getting up a 2nd round a 2nd round pick for Huff at this point, unless they're going to go back and watch him on defense and be like, oh yeah, But his small sample size hurts him in terms of negotiations and how much teams want him, because he could be a great pass rusher. But with that being said, like, to be more of the pessimistic side, is he as good of a pass rusher in more snaps? When you're only playing 7 to 10 snaps a game, you could be very, very, very fresh, obviously, right? Like, we're not idiots. We all know that. Is he better with more pass rush snaps in general? And then you add some run game onto there. Is he as explosive? Obviously, it's no. It's no. You can't be. You can't be as explosive when you're tired. So I don't think a team would give up more than a 2nd. So, yeah, I would say about a 2nd round tender for about $4 million, if that's exactly what it is. How detrimental? Let's see. How detrimental would cutting it massively? Now, Eli, I would have to go and look at who the other linebackers are available in free agency. If you're going to replace him with a Tremaine Edmonds, and you're going to save $17 million and give that $15 million to Tremaine Edmonds, obviously, but that's with having a replacement in mind. So just in general, it would suck, because then your starting linebackers next year right now are Hamza Nasruddin, Sherwood, and who's the kid they got? Who's he be a quarterback? They signed him to the practice squad. I forget his name off the top of my head right now. Chaz Surratt, that's your starting linebackers right now. So it would be very detrimental. But at the same point, paying Mosley $21 million next year is very, very detrimental. Now, to my knowledge, again, separate contracts, I believe they could save. So he's making $21 million on the cap this year. I think if they cut him with a June 1st cut designation, could be wrong on that, they could save $17 million, have $4 million dead this year and $4 million dead next year. If he does not want to renegotiate, you cut him. You cannot pay him $21 million. You sign a mid-tier linebacker who might be a little bit of a step down, but making $10 less million. I could see Mosley making, $13, $14 million. You meet him in the middle. Do I think he's more of like $10, $11, $12 million linebacker? Sure, but you meet him halfway because he's saving you a little bit of money. Now, are people going to argue that and say, oh, yeah, he's all pro? Okay. Does pro ball, all pro really mean much? Like, if it does to you, great. To me, obviously, I'm not trying to elevate myself. Like, I watch. I'm not saying Mosley is not an all pro type linebacker, regardless of how weak the linebacker position is in the NFL. And regardless of awards, he is not he's not a linebacker who's worth $21 million a year. And realistically, if four that's dead, so say $17 million a year, Mosley's not worth that. You cannot pay Mosley $17 million a year. Again, it's really 21, but four dead. So let's just say 17. I rather sign Edmund for the same price, or and I have to look at the linebacker list. But I'm already way behind the chat. Which, funny enough, I'm an hour behind the chat. I'm by myself. So, unsubscribing. I'm not watching a league that takes $700 million a year from the U.S. military while they start a world war, especially a team that won by the. Okay. John Hassel, I'm not sure what that's about, but adios if you're unsubscribing to me. Okay. I'm not doing anything with. I'm not powering a world war or something about serial killers. I'm just me. My house in Milltown, New Jersey. I'm not doing any of that stuff. But NFL benefits in no way from me. I benefit from me and Robbie and our writers and Michael Money, who puts out 1,000 articles today. So let's see. Need Rodgers. I'm okay with the Rodgers stuff. Let's see. Jets can match anything for Huff, Tender, or the Jets. Yeah. Huff will be on the team next year. I'm talking about in 2024. I don't think I misconstrued what I was talking about before. I think he's on the team this year. 2024, I'm not sure about, because you can't tender him back to years. Next year, if he's not re-signed, will be an unrestricted free agent. So let's see. How many years plus money are you paying Quinnen? I think Quinnen will fall $23 to $25 million a year for 4 or 5 years. So you're looking at 4 years, $100 million, let's just say, or 5 years, $125 million, with over 50% of that guaranteed. And I think he's worth it. Now, is it a little bit riskier than you want it to be because he had 1 year of production up to that level? Sure. But with that being said, you have a few stars in the team, and Q is one of them, right? Like, what superstars do the Jets have right now? Like, there's 3 or 4 of them, right? It's Q, it's Sauce. I think Garrett Wilson is a star/superstar. Breece Hall could be a superstar. He's also coming off from the injury, so he's at bare minimum right now a top 3 player in the team. Just based on last year, he's the best player in the team. You can't even if it's a little bit of an overpay, you pay that player. Like, I'll pay Q an extra couple of $1 million and cut the scrub Barrioses and Whiteheads of the world. So Q, if he's not back, we're going to have problems. Now, if he's asking for $30 million a year, different, but I think he'll fall into that $23 to $25 million a year category. Rico the Pup, I feel like the top OTs this year wouldn't even crack the top. Well, depends on where top 3 tackles from last year were. I haven't watched these guys. I'm not gonna watch 5 minutes of YouTube highlights and tell you I know about these guys, or read a scouting report from some guy I don't trust and tell you I know about these guys, like other people do. So I have to watch them myself. I don't know about these tackles. I know there's top 3 guys, top 3. How good are they? I don't know. Trust me, if you've been here for a little bit, people talk about Evan Neal. I wouldn't touch Evan Neal with a 10-foot pole at pick 10 last year with the Jets. Luckily, I think he went like 6, 7, 8, 12. I don't know where he went. He didn't go to the Jets, obviously. But I could hate a guy. So there might be top 3 guys, and I think only 1 or 2 of them are worth drafting at 13. But I don't know them in comparison to last year. I can tell you I was very down on Evan Neal, so they'll probably be better than him. Let's see. I thought JFM getting cut next year is $15 million. Next year might be Finger Lakes. This year, I don't believe it's the case. Correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, I don't want to look it up because I'm just talking to you guys. If Kyle was here, I'd have a little more time, flexibility to look some stuff up. But I think it's like 10 mil savings, but like 5 dead, which at that point just pay him, So who's it? Yeah, I just mentioned it. So Barrett's got to go. Completely agree. Yeah, so Indy Jets draft Steve Avalion in the 3rd. He can start at center or guard from like Kenny though. Kenny, do we think he can? Sure. He's a 2nd or 3rd round guy for a reason. There are plenty of guys who bust in the 1st or 2nd round. Like I'm not relying on my offensive line with a high priced quarterback on a 3rd round center from TCU. And now Indy, let's say I'm just using an example. You really like, let's just call him Steve. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. You love Steve in the 3rd round, and then what's our 3rd round pick? It's pick what? Like let's say like 70. Let's say 73. It's 73, and then the team at 72 takes him. You're left there with your dick in your hands. I'm not willing to do that. I'm just not. Now, again, I think you could adjust like that to safety, linebacker, some positions on defense, defensive tackle, where you can sign some scrap heap guys. I'm not signing a scrap heap center. So that's me. Now, do I think they should draft an interior guy to develop? Yeah. But you start talking about 3rd round guys starting. That's sketchy. Mike says, I remember what's up, Mike? I remember when people didn't consider Peyton Manning because we had Sanchez coming. Yeah, never ever. Yeah, didn't we say no to drafting like Watson and Mahomes because we wanted to see what Christian Hackenberg was? Obviously, completely different situations. But it's all about capital and the capital you have to give up, Mike. Like if Rodgers is the only option, okay, you get Rodgers. But is there a world or is there an argument, which I'm more on the side of, where you get Carr for more years for less capital, for less capital to trade for Carr than Rodgers, and you reinvest that capital into your team, keep you just as good? Yeah. Now, if we're talking about MVP Rodgers, where he's playing like a top 1 or 2 quarterback in the league, not a discussion, but I think he's more in that 5 to 10 range coming up in these next year or two than I think he's a number 1 or 2 or 3 quarterback. So let's say Rodgers is the 7th, 8th best quarterback in the league this year, where Carr might be 12. Would rather have the 12th best and a left tackle and more years of potentially sustained success with that quarterback, or go balls to the wall for Rodgers. That's a preference thing to me. I get both sides. I really do. I'm not the guy like, oh, you're an idiot if you think it's Rodgers over Carr. So yeah, Dak might be on the market. Again, yeah, he might be. And if you missed out on Rodgers, you missed out on Carr, Lamar signs back, and Dak's sitting there, he's the next best guy to me. You're talking about a near $30 million the next 2 years, $30 million a year for the next 2 years for him. And then you can pretty much get rid of him after that for nothing, I believe. I would take that risk. I think he's again a slightly above average quarterback. I'm not letting the very recent past just swing me off of that. Now, did they even have Gallup? I forget. Gallup was injured, right? But even if Lamb, Gallup, I don't think they really they build around him in the best way, and they have their coach who I think is a scrub anyway, with McCarthy, who people wanted with the Jets, which would have been better than Gase, but I'm not a McCarthy guy. So if free agency is looking thin at certain positions, do you think? Yeah, I think there's a possibility, depending, like tackle. Like let's say Brown retires, McGlinchey signs elsewhere, and your tackles going into the draft are Becton and Mitchell going to the draft with nothing being solidified in the draft. Could I see him swinging a big time trade or a trade for somebody? Yeah. Now who is it? I don't know. I think we have to face the fact that the realistic option might be to hope for a guy at 13. Okay, but you sign like an Andre Dillard for $5-6 million a year, and at least he's capable. So you have Becton, a capable guy, Mitchell, and then you go into the draft. Like that might be something that's realistic. I'm not happy with that, but the tackle market's thin right now, unfortunately, and receiver market's thin. So just to get rid of your guys like McGovern or Corey Davis, or like that, like it's easy to say, but again, show me your replacement. So let's see. I've had Manning in 97 draft, but Parcells wouldn't tell Art. Yep, you're right. At least what we know, right? Nicholas Roca, all I'm going to say about like the whole situation, he comes off as a real coward. Yeah, no, it's not a great look. Now, stuff always comes out like late, and it might not even be him saying it. it could be made up completely. Like there's guys. Who was the guy who came out and said that Zach Wilson wasn't a hard worker? Because listen, we can hate Zach Wilson. We can hate the no thing to taking blame for the offensive struggles. We can hate, him being rich, whatever. Like if you really give a shit about that stuff, whatever. I've never seen anybody question his work ethic. And like Rodgers came out and said, like he was talking to him on a Friday night. He's like, dude, get out of the film room. Like stop watching film, be a kid, go out to dinner. Zach Wilson, I'm never questioning him working hard. I don't know who it was, Dov something maybe. That could be his name. I could be mistaking it for another guy. But completely made up source, and everybody discredited him. But it's a joke. It's a joke of a report. But yeah, it's not a great look for LaFleur. Definitely not. So, yeah, it's why the hell did we draft Zach? That was one of the problems I had with the hires in general. Like you're bringing in rookie OC, 33, 34 years old, rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, no backup to speak of his first year that was capable. In terms of developing and training camp. So I think they traded for Flacco like in the preseason, right? Or something like that. Like he had nobody behind him who really has been there, done that before. So it was a shitty situation. They didn't build around him as properly as they should have. Now would he have worked out? Probably not. He has some flaws, that is for sure. He's probably, in terms of the situation they were in and how highly they were drafted, probably the biggest bust we've had at quarterback. I would say Geno was more successful than him. Sanchez was more successful than him. Darnold was better than him. And they all had worse teams, obviously minus Sanchez. But so would that turn around? No. But yeah, Mike LaFleur, he knew what he was getting into, right? So, and it's not like, and Zach was decent at the end of his rookie year. Like that Bucs game was impressive to me. The Jaguars game was impressive to me. So you're going around apparently and talking shit in the offseason how much better your team was with Mike White and Josh Johnson and Flacco or whatever. It's a shitty look. It is a shitty look. And for the tough love thing, it's also a shitty look. Let's see. Keep going down. We're talking about Prescott. I didn't say Prescott this early, but to say he's the black Sam Darnold, I think he is, again, in that 10 to 15, 10 to 16 range. Sam Darnold is a bottom tier quarterback. And again, listen, he's my option 4. To me, and I'm curious to hear you guys, but it's and again, Lamar Jackson, like if he's healthy, is option 1, but that's such a loaded box to unpack. I'll put him at 3 just because I have no idea. But it's Carr, Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Prescott, Tannehill, Jimmy G, 5, 6. And even honestly, and even with Jimmy G and Tannehill, I know this is more fan of me speaking, just me being done with the quarterback situation. I don't want Jimmy G or Tannehill without a young quarterback to develop because they're just not the answer. I know they're not the answer for really this year, minus being like mediocre and maybe making the playoffs with skinnier balls. But like you're really talking about past like the top 4 options. I'm almost like a trade up for a quarterback. But at that point, can the Jets do that because they just spent a number 2 overall pick on a quarterback? Probably not because their job's relying on it. But yeah, just give me one of those. Just give me Carr or Rodgers. I don't have to talk about any of this shit, really. So let's see. Carr and NY will play like Dak and Dallas has, in my opinion. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, Mike. Oh, meaning fans will want him gone because he can't. Listen, you say that, but fans were ready to drop to their knees and suck off Mike White when he was playing decent. And Carr is better than Mike White. I'm sorry, but he is. So if we're gonna be chanting Mike White and doing all this shit and getting excited about Mike White for how he beat the Bears, you're gonna be more excited with Carr. I guarantee it. I watched his first couple of games from 2021, and I was impressed. I was definitely impressed. Now, obviously, I'm gonna get much more deep into the weeds if he is the Jets quarterback, but watching him from last year. Obviously, he had maybe a little bit of a downturn, but obviously, guys being injured, not on the same page with his coordinator or with the offense. I believe McDaniel's trying to go more intermediate with Carr, and Carr is a short to deep passer. He's not great on the intermediate. He's great play action. He's great with deep balls, great with deep accuracy, great with quick decisions, but not as great over the middle. So you have a little bit of limitation over the middle. It's not necessarily his strong suit, at least to my knowledge. But you can't try to make him something he's not, at 30, 31 years old. Like, play to his strengths. And I don't think McDaniels necessarily did that. And McDaniels was that type of guy with the Broncos, right? Like he ran Jay Cutler and Brandon Marshall out of town. Now, I'm not saying that they, I know the full knowledge of the situation or had the full knowledge of the situation, but it's kind of his MO, being one of those like New England coaches who never work out, who might be a little bit too strict stuff, but let's see. Nick Bosa, Barkley out of the draft. No, Nick Bosa wasn't generational. He wasn't generational. I would say more generational. At least, and listen, this is them going into the draft. I'm not saying that they are better players than Bosa now because Bosa might be the defensive player of the year this year. But in regards to prospects, Garrett and Clowney were definitely higher tier prospects than Bosa was, at least the hype around them. With that being said, I was not as much in the draft community as it was then, but I definitely remember Clowney was surefire number one. I would say Garrett was probably a tick below Clowney. Obviously, Garrett has a much better career. But in terms of prospects, I would say Clowney and Garrett were definitely above Bosa, or I'm 90% sure on that. So if I don't know if Gutting's in here. Oh yeah. Just don't like we use a second overall pick on the quarterback and OC. Don't want to do his job. Yeah, I'm not trying that one right now. Just don't like we use. Yeah, I don't know. Don't use a second overall pick on a quarterback if the OC doesn't want to do his job. Don't hire an OC who doesn't want to work with a second-year quarterback. Either way, it sucks. Trevor Lawrence is a luck type talent. I think now I'm not saying that Trevor Lawrence can't be what Andrew Luck is in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence in college was not what Andrew Luck was at Stanford. Luck was a generational player. I think Lawrence was very, 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 very good. But I just think to me personally, generational is how you want to describe it. To me, generational is generational if you're taking it like verbatim. And Lawrence was not generational. I've seen one generational quarterback, and that is Carr. Or not Carr. Luck. Like Linderbaum, generational last year. He wouldn't have went 16. Kyle Hamilton, generational. Really? You sure? So it's just an overused term to me. Now, do I think Lawrence could be? Do I think he could be the second best quarterback in the NFL? Sure. I don't think anybody's going to be better than Mahomes. But was he as highly rated or even highly? I would say he's more highly rated than Burrow coming out of the draft, or definitely was. So could he be the second best quarterback in the NFL? Sure. He has more athleticism than Burrow. Now, obviously, Burrow's a baller. I'm not going to guarantee you that. Could he be better than Burrow next year, 2 years? Yeah. Why not? He has that capability. But I'm saying at the time he was drafted, he was not Luck's level of generational at the time. Now, in the NFL, completely different story. Luck was never the best quarterback or the second best quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. So in the NFL, yeah, sure. Talent, sure. In terms of draft prospect, Luck, Lawrence, right? I don't think I'm being crazy there, but it depends on how much you talk about, how much I think people overuse the word generational. Again, drop some generational guys. I can't think of many. Joe Campanelli, Aaron Rodgers is going to get Zach on that plant medicine and give him a new perspective on life. Dude, like people are like, oh my God, he does ayahuasca. I don't want him. Who gives a fuck? I don't care if he does ayahuasca. I don't care if he does shrooms. I don't care if he smokes weed all the time. I don't care if he's an alcoholic. If he wins me games, I don't give a fuck what he does. Like, who cares about him doing ayahuasca? Like, I have some friends who do shrooms. I don't give a fuck. You do you. Still my friend. I'm not going to do shrooms with you. But at the same point, I don't give a fuck. Who cares? Now, do I want him doing shrooms before an NFL game? No, unless it's giving him some like crazy fucking vision. They can see guys open before they are. Crazy anticipation. Then yeah, sure, do some shrooms. But I don't give a shit what you do in the offseason. Now, I care much less about that than I do I'm going to retire and have the Packers by the balls every year, and I don't have to take weeks away and months away and do all this stuff and reevaluate. I don't want that shit. I don't like how smug he is sometimes. But at the end of the day, if he wins games, I don't really care that much. I don't. The legitimate threat of retirement is something to actually be concerned about. Him doing ayahuasca, who cares? The fact that he was on Joe Rogan, who cares? I like Joe Rogan. I listen to a lot of his podcasts. Do I necessarily, again, ayahuasca, whatever? Like, I don't know, who cares? Sound logic card is, yeah, I don't know. Not card, like Carr's ass. Like Kyle says this, and I address this stuff. I've been definitely better on Twitter recently. Like people will message me stuff. Like the one guy the other day is like, "Oh, you're stupid goatee and you have a shitty mic." It's like, okay, I'm not gonna answer this guy. He's definitely better at not answering people than I am. But like, and this is something that Kyle always says: Carr's ass is not an argument to me. Why is he ass? How? He's been a top 10 to 12, 15 quarterback his entire career in terms of numbers with a shitty team around him. Like, we've seen ass. I cannot believe Jets fans are shitting on Carr. Now, is he Rodgers? No. Is he Lamar Jackson? No. Is he solid enough to win games with? Yes. Yes. Just because you watched a couple of highlights or you watched one game where you overthrew that guy late in the game and got picked off, does not mean he's ass. Right? So, yeah, I agree with you. Main event. I just think it's overused. Carr our luck was the last once in a generation quarterback prospect, though. Lawrence is very good, not generational. Yeah, I agree with that. So let's see, keep going down. Mike Rodgers. Oh my God, I thought you meant like Rodgers, Wilson, like either one of those guys as a starting quarterback would be your number one. I was about to revoke everything and all the respect I had for you. But Rodgers, Mike, Jimmy G, Wilson, White is your two? Hey, God. Why Jimmy G? Like I get it as like a last resort type of deal, but the dude is consistently injured, and we see what Brock Purdy's doing with them. And I'll give him his credit, but that's a very productive, very easy offense to be good in. And Jimmy G still falls short of being good sometimes. And he's injury prone, and he might be coming to a new scheme. I don't really want to touch Jimmy that much. So for him to be option 2, okay, that's your opinion. Wentz is 3. Are you punking me? 4 is Tannehill. Don't want anyone like Carr who could easily fail. You're stuck with him for multiple years, unable to improve. Yeah, we're on the same. Usually, I'm pretty with you, Mike. But Jimmy G, Wentz, Tannehill over Carr. Like, what do you think Jimmy G is? Is he better than Carr? Do you think Jimmy G, Wentz, and Tannehill are better than Carr? Never tell me, okay, Carr's contract is guaranteed for 5 years. Then yeah, okay, where those guys might be an option for a year or two. But I think you can win with Carr, man. You can win with him. There's been quarterbacks who have been plenty worse in the Super Bowl or deep into the playoffs, a la Sanchez, a la Jimmy G. So let's see. Jets playing with I don't know if you're backing up Zach Wilson in terms of like there were some flaws with the game plan and some of the how they use guys and stuff, but he would literally be staring at wide open guys and not pull the trigger and then throw the ball to Elijah Moore on a wheel route and get an interception when his first read was Garrett Wilson wide open in the middle on a dig route. Regardless of the OC, that is that. Now, yeah, the film room and his confidence, all that, I get we can lump that in, but the biggest problem with Zach was Zach. Now, were there other problems? Yeah, sure. But I'm not going to say, oh, Michael LaFleur sucks. He's at fault for Zach, or he's at fault for Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was very, 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 very bad this year. Very, very bad. Let's see. No, Daniel Jones. Again, that's another, like, the Daniel Joneses, like the 1 year wonders are big risks because if they hit the open market, they're going to get a lot of money, right? Daniel Jones, 1 year guy. Okay. Geno, 1 year guy. I rather, like, to me, I'm more on, okay, and again, this is like throw the capital out the window, but I'm more Dak because he's proven for a couple of years now, and even though he's had a couple bad games, whatever it may be. I'm more for the proven track record guys, Dax, than I am Daniel Jones, Geno Smith type guys who have been good for a year that can come here, new situation, new offense, completely fall apart, where Dak has proven it a little bit more. So Lazardo's not that good. I agree with you, Art. David's words, MC. I don't know what's going on here, Jets game. Let's see. I like Davis in the run game, so that's why you need to. I like Davis in the run game, so that's what you need to replace as much as the wide receiver role. Yes, he's replacing the run game. Obviously, new system with as not as many reduced splits and without as a big emphasis on outside zone, you're not going to need as much blocking from your. I did air quotes there. Yeah, I guess that works, right? You're not going to use as much receiver blocking potentially. Obviously, depending if it's a new outside zone guy who does tight splits, then yeah, just as much. But you obviously the receiving aspect is more important than the blocking. But I get what you're saying. The blocking was underrated 100% by him. 100%. Did Mike White make the offense better? Yes. Right? Like Mike White was pretty good against the Vikings. He was pretty good the first half or so against the Bills. He was pretty good against the Bears. So it was definitely better with Mike White. He threw for 300 yards his first game against the Bengals. Josh Johnson came in. Was the offense better? in that Colts game, even though a lot of it was in garbage time. Yeah. Zach Wilson was very, very bad. It wasn't like teetering on, oh, okay, he's good sometimes, bad sometimes. The offense didn't surround him. Like, he was bottom of the NFL, terrible. Like, you're talking about guys in recent years. Like, I'm much more comfortable right now. Teddy Bridgewater, backup quarterback, coming out and winning a game for you. I'm much more comfortable with Jacoby Brissett, backup quarterback, coming out and winning a game for you. I'm much comfortable with Mike White, backup quarterback, coming out and winning a game for you. I'm more okay with Taylor. Is it Tyler Huntley coming out and winning a game? So we're talking about multiple backup quarterbacks. So I'm much more confident in winning a game than Zach Wilson right now. And again, some of that does have to do with Michael LaFleur, but to make him as a scapegoat and say, oh, it's black or white is all LaFleur is crazy to me. It was definitely more Wilson than White. There was guys open plenty, and we showed it plenty. Not even on just the film shows, on the actual live streams, which I know a lot of you are here for, where we can show that stuff, or we do show that stuff. So it's not, if he's staring at a guy wide open, Michael LaFleur is supposed to alert him in his fucking head, in his helmet, saying he's open, throw the ball. You know, he was bad. He was very bad. If Wentz is not going to be a 1 year, $8 million-ish, he's not. He's getting paid like $30 million this year or something like that, right? You're looking at Wentz for probably 15 to 20, maybe. That's just my rough guesstimate right now. You're not getting him for $8 million a year. There's no way. So, no. I do not want to touch Wentz. I do not want to touch Tannehill over Carr. So let's see. White truffle sounds nice. We need a big body wide receiver. Zach Truthers are only programmed to form excuses for him and not look at facts. Yeah, and there's always gray. Like, people, YouTube, Twitter, like the popular thing is to be black or white. All this guy's fault, all that guy's fault. And there's no gray area. Like, yeah, there's gray area worth discussing. We talk about that. But Zach Wilson was Zach Wilson's biggest problem. And it's not like, oh, he's going out and getting drunk and not watching film. Like, he tried. I think he's a smart quarterback. I don't know how true the rumors are. Like, they went from like a full read system to 1-2 and run or scramble or roll out. But you could be smart as hell in the film room, and once there's 280-pound guys running at you at 4.4 speed, shit changes pretty quick. So he looked flustered for sure. So Zach Wilson, yeah. How about that? Yeah, no, he did. I'm not denying that. So no one serious wants. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Mike. I'm not Wentz. At that point, trade up to fucking 1 and draft a quarterback. I'd rather draft than get Wentz. No way. Over Carr, I don't get what the hate for Carr is. I think people are lumping him in to more like the Jimmy G range. Like, if he was more like Jimmy G in that 15 to 18 to 20 range, okay, that'll be different. But I think Carr in certain years is legitimately top 10 to 15 quarterback. You could win with that. Again, like Afrin says right here, Purdy, Sanchez, Tannehill got decently far. Blake Bortles got decently far. Trent Dilfer, obviously elite Super Bowl defense. He won a Super Bowl. Peyton Manning, his last couple years with the Broncos, he was not Peyton Manning, but he had Demaryius Thomas and was it Welker that year? I don't know if it was Welker that year. Really good defense. Actually not a good defense. The offense was just absolutely on fire. Who was their tight end? Who was that tight end from the Broncos? It's gonna come to me. You guys. He went to the Jaguars after, right? It was Broncos and then the Jaguars, and he fizzled out. Whoever the tight end was good, whoever the tight end was good for them. But Carr can. If we can make the championship game with Sanchez, we can make the championship game or farther with Carr. And obviously it's not 1-for-1 because of the cap and all that stuff. But put Carr and what he is. I'll give the benefit of the doubt and say he's the 15th best quarterback in the league. If Mark Sanchez that year was the 15th best quarterback in the league, are the Jets playing the Super Bowl? To me, they are. I'm not going to put words in your mouth or anybody's mouth, but to me, very, very strongly, they're in the Super Bowl. This year, if you had the 15th best quarterback in the league, are you winning 10 games? We got far below average. Pats, Dolphins, Lions. We win 10, 11 games with average. Carr is at worst at the bare minimum average, the bare minimum, and they are staking their careers to this. Listen, if they go out and they trade for Wentz and he gets hurt or wherever he sucks like he usually does, and they lose, and that's their answer, and that shows his answer is Wentz or Garoppolo, instead of just no Carr. He's average. I don't want average. I'd rather have a guy who's not going to be here for as long and risk my job to that. There's no way. There's no way they're going to do that. There's no way. So this is for what's up, Eagle Fang. I guess this is for. I'm okay with that. The 2023 third and a conditional first for Rodgers. I'm nervous about the retirement stuff. I think if he comes here and he wins, he's not going to threaten that as much. But Jets need Rodgers or Carr. Both improve would improve this team, and Jets would have a legit QB and not see that. Yeah. No, to me it's Carr or Rodgers. That's what I really want. I think for your best chance in the Super Bowl the next couple of years, it's probably Rodgers, but the Carr's a little bit more long term. Seth Roberts worked his whole life to make it to the NFL. Sorry. Bless Austin did too. He sucks. It is what it is. And then after, I think his mom commented on it was my video or somebody else's video, and just wait and see and all this stuff, and then it's terrible. Didn't he say he was the best quarterback or cornerback in the NFL? Obviously all these guys are better than we'll ever be at football, but there's different expectations in the NFL, and you're making millions of dollars a year, right? So we can criticize you. For the people, I hate the argument of, he's better than you are. No shit. I'm not making $4 million a year to play cornerback in the NFL. And it's relative to the guys who you're playing with. I'm not saying you suck. I could beat you in the parking lot of MetLife. I'm saying you suck compared to other cornerbacks or other quarterbacks or other receivers, whoever. So it's Bill Fawn. How many busts have we drafted in the first 2 rounds? Yeah. No, a lot. Right? I'm not giving up 2 firsts. I think it's more of a 3rd or a 4th and a conditional first. But I'm going to say 2020. I think the other person said this. 2023 3rd, 2024 first conditional on playing time or him retiring. And he admitted to having to rework his contract, right? So he's not going to be making what he's making. Let me read that now before I forget. This is as per Rivka, who works for the website. Dude, I'm gonna have a problem even reading this. So most likely, I think this is post June 1st. Be designated post June 1st. 2023 cap hit is $15.8 million. The 2024 cap hit, if he's on the roster, is $32.5. Rodgers' 2024 dead cap hit, if cut or retired, is if he's cut retired pre-June 1st, is $43.7 million. 2024 dead, if he's cut retired post-June 1st, it's $14.5. Rodgers' 2025 dead cap hit, if cut retired post-June 1st, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. I don't know why it says that 20 or 14 and then 29 both post-June 1st, but if he's cut retired, it's a lot of money for 2024, regardless, either post or pre-June 1st. And the 25 dead cap hit, if he's on the roster in 20. So this reads, Rodgers' 2025 dead cap hit, if he's on the roster in 2024, is $51 million. How the hell? I guess because of the bonuses and stuff. Rodgers' 2026 dead cap hit, if he's on the roster in 2024, is $45 million. So it's not so really I don't that's Chinese to me. I don't think necessarily even that could be maybe let out a little bit better because there's more in the chat. But it's not about 2023 and 2024 with Rodgers in terms of what we have to pay him. It's about how much he's going to cost the Jets in 2025, 2026 after he's gone. Which, okay, you're going to argue, well, who cares about 2025, 2026 if we make a Super Bowl run in the next 2 years, which I agree with, but big risk to take. Now, does he rework that contract? Yeah. So. I don't think Stafford. I think you're wrong, Art. I could be wrong. I believe he won 1 playoff game with the Lions. 1. But again, he's a scrub. So he only won 1 playoff game. Mark Sanchez won 5. So Mark Sanchez, to some people's mentality, if I'm going to transfer it over, Mark Sanchez is a better quarterback, at least prior to last year, if he won the Super Bowl, than Matt Stafford, right? Correct? Zach Wilson to start the season was 5-2. Aaron Rodgers was 3-5. So therefore, in fact, Zach Wilson is a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers, right? If we're going to stick with that logic, quarterback wins or wins the QB stat, that's what we're going with. Sanchez is better or was better than Stafford up to this point. He was a better pick. They should have the Lions should have drafted Mark Sanchez. That's your logic. All right. Woody seems massive. Yeah. I could see him middling a little bit in it. But again, either one of like I could say I prefer Carr to Rodgers, but either one, okay, let's roll. Assuming he reworks the contract a little bit, we're not trading 2 first for him. Ray Lucas had his moments. Yeah, what year was that? Sneakers and Boots, early 2000s, like that. At that point, like I forget him even playing for the Jets. Like I know he did, but in terms of me actually watching, like I don't remember games I watched with Ray Lucas playing for the Jets. I'm 29, about to be 30. Being 30 on February 4th. So like I got a week and a half left of my 20s. I was more sad about turning 30 at like 25 than I am at 29. 29, I'm like, okay, it is what it is. I feel like I'm 30. So let's see. Watched Vinny as a kid, 19. Yeah, I was 5, so I did not enjoy that. Same thing with the Devils. Like I'm a Devils fan. The Devils won their rings in was it 97, 98, and like 2001, 2003. So like I was 10 less than they wanted. I didn't appreciate it like I would now. I think it was 97 or 98, 1 and 3. Could be wrong. But I was way too young to appreciate it. Like, I didn't appreciate even Chad as much as I should have when I was watching Chad in the mid 2000s. But see, Joe Campanelli, in terms of Rodgers, he sounded excited about the Jets on Pat McAfee. He's also asked directly about the Jets, and they beat him this year, and they're better. So, bro, Aaron Rodgers, yeah, I don't think he's going to let's see, I got to fly through. Oh, shit, I'm still an hour behind. That's ridiculous. If Garrett had Rodgers this year, he gets, 100%. 400 yards, 6+ touchdowns, easily. I'm just going to scroll past some of the stuff that I'm seeing about. Zach doesn't get. Who are you listening to? There's excuses about him with the coaching, but it's to lay it all on that is foolish. Still waiting on the. I did a Jordan review. The Jordan review is probably an hour, and I saw some bad coming. That is for sure. Whitehead, same thing. That review came out, and it was not positive. Lake and Tomlinson, that review came out. It was not very positive in terms of what we were paying him. I still thought he would be solid. Not as good as people. Oh my God, all pro ball, he's great. No. He was never that. He was never that. Poyer, what is he getting paid though? How much capital do you have to spend on Poyer after getting, let's say, Rodgers / Carr, replacing offensive linebackers? Hopefully trade 3rd for Carr and trade down 13. To recoup. It all depends, like who's there at 13. If you love OT2 or Jackson Smith and Nigba, I think that's how you say it. I could be wrong. Then don't trade down. Like if there's a guy worth it, but that's so far away. Hey dude, your mic is good. I don't know if it's better or not. It's a little bit far too, but I don't know if it's better than my prior mics. So let me know. Hopefully it is, because I just bought it, and if it's not, that would be disappointing. But I could play with the settings, I think, a little bit on how. Okay. Skip that one. There's some comments in here I just do not even want to entertain, because I already did it. Going on. We should trade. If you could trade, like obviously it would never happen, but the next 10 years of first-round draft picks for Patrick Mahomes, like you easily do it. Like it's not just something you think about. It would suck because we'd never talk about the draft again until it actually happens. But you trade 10 first-round picks for Patrick Mahomes, right? Like you have to. Talk about the best quarterback in the NFL, who at 27 years old. 3 first-round bet. Can you imagine? Okay. I don't know if we have a moderator in here, but we're talking about COVID and Damar Hamlin passing away, which is just ridiculous. So I gotta get some new mods too. I know I haven't updated in a little bit, but I gotta put some new mods. Johnny Boy, this is a Jets fan mentality. We're gonna put Taylor Heineke after waiting for Rodgers to bail on us, dude. Like, can you imagine Heineke or Minshew or Jacoby Brissett or Andy Dalton? Bro, Drums appreciate it. Like the video. 3, 2, 1. Oh, which, by the way, I was gonna say I'm like very close to. I don't really talk about it a lot, but like Twitter, I just got over 8K. And on YouTube, when I saw it today, we were at 799. So we needed 10 more subscribers in this episode. So are we there yet? We are not there yet. So I would appreciate if we get to 8,000 before I click off in a couple of minutes. I don't think it's going to happen. But 8,000 is nice. And obviously the goal is to 10, and then 15, and 20, and then wherever else. But 8,000 is better than 7.99. That's just an annoying number. I'd rather be at 786 than 799. 799 is just annoying. So either unfollow or follow. You know, either one. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I apologize for the dead time, but I'm reading some stuff. Jets Chaos. What's up? Don't you know, Joe? Every Jets fan knows exactly who should be the OC, and even though there is plenty of difference, they all believe they are the one that's right. Yeah, of course, and they could be right because their opinions aren't necessarily put out there. But and just in terms of OC, whether it be Marcus Brady or Joe Brady or whoever else, I want the experienced guy. Like at the end of the day, it's the best option or the most desirable outcome to say, okay, the Eagles quarterbacks coach, whatever his name is, has never called or has never been like a real OC in the NFL or OC in the NFL, and he has a ceiling of Sean McVay. Yeah, that's great, but what is the chance of that? Like we're at a point now where we need to hire somebody who's called plays before. I just don't see the Jets brass saying, yeah, we are in a position where our seats are hot and we're going to rely on some guys who have called plays before, just like we did with before. Obviously that failed, right? Jones had 15 TDs this year. Haven't the Jets not had a quarterback with throw over 10 touchdowns in like how many years? Isn't that ridiculous? 10 touchdowns. Dudes do that in 2 games, right? Like, did Brett Favre do that in 2 years? I'd be curious or in 2 games because the Cardinals game. He had 6. Did he have 4 after that or 4 before that? I wonder. There's quarterbacks who throw for as many touchdowns in 2 games as the Jets quarterbacks have had in an entire season. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We have been embarrassingly bad at quarterback. Like other teams have sucked, but I'm not saying we're the worst of the worst. Like there are teams who are below, Texans, whatever. But like at least those teams who have sucked have had good quarterbacks. The Lions, who are obviously on the uptrend, they've had Stafford. The Seahawks sucked. They've had obviously more recent. They had Russell Wilson. There's plenty of teams out there who have sucked, but at least they've had something redeemable about the quarterback position. We've been bottom 3, bottom 5 for most of the last 12 years, and really all of the last 12 years, depending on where you rank fits for that 1 year. So, let's see. Dream is Tom. No, it's not. It's not. Tom Brady has fallen off. He's still. I think he's still decent. I think he can still be solid in the right situation. But if Tom Brady's pressured, he is immobile at this point. He's not what he was. So he is not the dream. The dream is Tom Brady from 10 years ago, sure, which is crazy. He's like 36 10 years ago or 35 10 years ago, but no. Dak would be terrible. Yeah, I think he's the 4th best option. And realistically, if it's not Lamar Jackson, I think he's probably with the Ravens. Is he the 3rd best option? Carr, Rodgers, Dak to me. Yeah, I'd rather have Dak than Tannehill. I'd rather have Dak than Garoppolo. I'd rather have Dak than Minshew, Brissett, et cetera, et cetera. So, I didn't see this, Tony. I'm sorry. I was so late in your super chat. LaFleur ruined Zach with his 1,000 plays playbook and not keeping Zach's quarterback coach, John Beck. Well, a lot of teams have not I'm going to say 1,000 in general. A lot of teams have like 1,000 plays, and they'll shorten it during the offseason. They'll shorten it during certain weeks of the season. And LaFleur was at fault. Red zone stuff, 3rd down stuff, empty on 3rd and short. Some of the predictability, if it was there, if you think it was there, fine, okay, I understand that. But to say he was the main cause over what Zach is, like if Zach had flashes this year of like, okay, that's really, really good, then sure. But Zach would literally be staring at guys wide open on slants and not throw the ball. Like he had a very, very tough time. And how much of the difference? Like I think John Beck, he made a difference maybe somewhat last year in terms of him coming in and Zach having an uptick. Like I'm not saying they treated him They didn't handle it perfectly with Zach. Do I still think, even if handled perfectly, Zach would have worked out? I don't. I don't see him, with how far gone he is and where he is in terms of his bad play. I don't see a little bit better coaching, a little bit OC making him being a good quarterback. Like it doesn't move the needle all the way over there from here for me, if that makes sense. But I appreciate the super chat, Tony. It's just it's not like, oh, he's just slightly bad. He's awful, like awful. So let's see. Yeah, chat's right. Thank you. A little bit late, I know. The point of this is for me to talk for an hour and a half, and be on time with your chats. But we start getting the quarterbacks and me having to, like, the thing is when you start doing streams, or even in general, like just for me, is like I already hear the argument as I'm saying my argument. So just to deflect the people who are going to come out with the stupid shit in the comments, I kind of just give both sides and kind of try to combat myself almost sometimes. So then I can talk about one quarterback for fucking 12 minutes, and then I'm an hour behind the chat. So I apologize for that. I'll try to be better. I know maybe with a producer, maybe like there at a certain point, like, yeah, we usually have like 150 to 200. Maybe we'll hit 300 soon. At the end of the day, do I want to get to 1,000 at a time? Yeah, that'd be ideal. If we're ever there, can I ever hit every chat or most of the chats? I can't. So the more people we get viewing, the less chats I hit, more importance on super chats. So yeah, Middletown used to shop. I think you're talking about the wrong Middletown, Jeremy. Unless there's another. Well, maybe there has to be multiple Middletowns in Jersey, right? I don't know. But people are always like weird with that. Like, oh, like I can't say what town I live in. Like, who's gonna come fucking find me in Middletown? Middletown is 40 square miles, whatever it is. Like, you're gonna come knocking on every door. Like who? People are weird with that stuff. But let's see. Okay, how concerned? I see a question mark after this. I don't know what the question is. How concerned are you about Breece Hall coming off the ACL injury back to his injury? With modern medicine, I'm not overly concerned with Breece Hall. I think now, am I concerned about him coming back full strength September, October, November, even the full year? Yeah, there's concern there. Do I think he'll be what he was last year eventually? Yes. How soon is that? I can't necessarily say. Maybe by November, something like that. At the start of the year. Becton. Listen, like you feel bad for him a little bit because he's like, oh, I can't wait to run out the tunnel and stuff, like indicating he's gonna be a starter for the Jets next year. Now, would it be great for him to come back and be a starter and be as good as he was his rookie year and even build upon that? Sure, awesome. He's had back-to-back, whether his fault or not, season-ending injuries at 370 pounds. You cannot rely on him to be the starter. If you're going in with him as a starter and nothing as a backup plan, then that's a mistake. Now, if you're going to say, okay, Brown retires, we're going to draft a right tackle in round 1 or 2, let him compete with Max Mitchell, okay, and you have Dillard and Becton. While not ideal, I understand it, but to have Becton as LT1 and no LT2, we have serious problems. So happy tanking, appreciate that. See, maybe we got like 200 viewers because of the mystery QB thing. Because I thought about like last second, I was like, maybe I'll just put like people are gonna QB click, Nathan 7 for Neil. Yeah, no, I did not like Neil at all. I think he was bad this year too, right? Like I saw something come out, like a screenshot somebody put on Twitter of like the top 10 picks graded, and Neil was like a C-. So, and he could bounce back. Andrew Thomas wasn't great his first year. I didn't like Andrew Thomas. I'll be transparent. I didn't like Andrew Thomas. At least I didn't like him as much as Wirfs and Wills and Becton. I thought he was the 4th best tackle out of those guys right now. He's probably the second, right? It's him and Wirfs. Well, he's second. It's Wirfs than him, right? I don't know how well Wills has been playing with the Browns, but I can always be wrong. But I did not like Neil at all. I liked Andrew Thomas a lot more than Neil. Like Andrew Thomas, I didn't hate him. I thought he would be fine at 11 the year for the Jets if the other 2 tackles were gone. I can even understand him at 11 over like a Becton because he was more safe. And Wirfs was like, he was a guy who people were talking about maybe as a guard. Okay, I understand Thomas. So he wasn't my preference over some other guys. I could understand the pick. If the Jets drafted Neil at 10, I would lose my shit. I did not like Neil at all. Now, maybe he bounces back. He has the athleticism to do so. But no, absolutely not. I hated that pick. Or I hated that guy. Not as a guy, but you know what I'm saying. Randy, Blue, love your work, dude. Appreciate that. Keep it up. When will you get back with Green Bean? I don't know. I feel like Ryan, we usually do something like once every, couple, like once a month, maybe once every other month. Green Bean feels like less like every like 6 months, maybe a year. I don't know. That's not agreement. Whatever you ask, I'll go back and agreement. I like chopping it up. So please read the super chat. It's a complete outrage. I'm sorry. I'm a one-man crew here. There it is. I read it before. It's an outrage. I will refund you your $5, Tony, if you want it back. I apologize. I know it took a long time. I didn't see it. I scrolled past it and read it. Joe, who's a QB you want? I want Carr, just because of the controllability, how good I think we could be with him for 5, 6, 7 years. The no threat of retirement, the capital we have to trade to get him, the extra guys we can add with him over Rodgers. But it's him and Rodgers. I would say 1A, 1B because Rodgers is more sketchy to me. Again, with the retirement stuff and how much you have to pay. Now, if I see that he reworks his contract and it's 2023, 2024, 2025 for $45 million a year, but not all this dead money crazy shit if he retires, then I'm much more comfortable with it. Currently, it's definitely Carr 1, Rodgers 2. I think you could win with Carr. I legitimately. Gallup is still. I know he's on the Cowboys, Art, but was he injured for the playoffs? I think. What was I doing during the Cowboys game? I don't remember seeing him. I forget. Want to know a funny story really quickly? I was on my way back from Costa Rica, and I knew the Bucs were playing the Cowboys in the wild card round. I didn't know the exact time, so I was on the flight, and like I hope they have movies always. Or I'm reading a book. What the hell is it called? Summer of the Empire Moon is that what it's called? About the Comanches and all that stuff in Texas, in that area. But I saw on the TV for the plane that Cowboys Bucs. Like, oh shit, cool! Like I can watch a playoff game on the plane. Fucking awesome. So I'm watching it. Like at halftime, like this seems very, very similar to a game I've watched before. And then at halftime, I realized how quick halftime went. That is a fucking game from week 1. And then I realized that the Bengals and Ravens game was on. It was already after half. I'm like, son of a bitch. So I was watching the repeat. I had no idea. It's like I wasn't necessarily listening. I was watching it in front of me. Damn it, dude. Kyler with that contract makes him way more overrated. Kyler Murray, yeah. And just him in general. Like he does not seem like the most ideal dude to build around. Let's see. Some people talking shit to each other. Seems like good ribbing here. Let's kind of move down. I'm sorry for the last hour. I'm scrolling through relatively quick. On multiple occasions, Mike White showed his game was to find an open guy, get the ball out quickly, and keep the chains moving and put points on the board. The threat of his passing opened up our run game. Oh yeah, for sure, it did. Like Donovan Knight and all that stuff. Now there's limitations with White, 100%. There's times he's definitely risk adverse and check down happy. That happens, and you saw that a lot with was it the Bills game? I forgot where he would come off of his first read too quickly and he'd come open. Rather like to play him or I would like to see him have a little bit better anticipation of guys coming open instead of just racing right to the check down, but he's still efficient, right? Purdy looks like he's going to be QB1. That's an interesting situation. People talk about him trading for a guy. Like, can you imagine them with Rodgers or them with Carr or them with whoever? But they have Purdy, who's obviously shown to be pretty good, or at least decent right now. Could be a flash in the pan. Plenty of guys are. You have Trey Lance, so like, could they realistically invest big time in another quarterback? I don't know. Lamar Jackson 2 years running in is the most. Lamar Jackson is overrated to me. He is. I think he's more 5 to 10 range. I think he's solid. I think he's a decent passer, a very good runner. But he won MVP. I think that was a reach. Yes, I did. So I think he's overrated. I still think he's good, right? Is that fair to say? I think he could still be good while being also overrated. LaFleur ruined Zach and his confidence with his. I think a problem with Wilson too is like you can never necessarily predict how a guy is going to respond to a crowd full of people being quarterback one in the NFL, especially coming off of a COVID year where he's playing at BYU with nobody in the stands. Like that's shit happens, So Luck was a monster at Stafford. Yeah, whatever happened, he regressed. Yeah, we're past the point of arguing why Zach didn't work out. Now maybe in fairy tale land, could he work out for the Jets in the future after being on the Rodgers for 2 years? Sure. Would I put that at 1%? Yeah. We've never really seen as bad as Zach Wilson has been. So regardless of what the excuses are, he's been very, very bad. Sam Darnold had a fuck ton more excuses than Zach Wilson did. Adam Gase, play callers changing consistently, terrible offensive line, Andre Roberts, David Nelson, a scrub defense, and he still looked better than Zach. Zach has excuses, not as many excuses as some other quarterbacks have had that we've seen. So, Sauce, but Sauce wasn't generational either. If Sauce was generational, he wouldn't have went behind Stingley. So now Sauce should have never went behind Stingley, in my opinion. But if he was generational, he'd been the first overall pick. Or who's the first overall? Wow, I'm blanking out. Was there a quarterback taken last year, number 1 overall? I'm really blanking out on that. But regardless, it was Aiden Hutchinson? No, he was 2. Who was the quarterback last year? I'm really forgetting who was the number 1 pick in the draft. No, it was Walker. Correct? Jaguars? Yeah, it was Walker, Hutchinson, Stingley, Sauce, right? I'm not an idiot. Well, I'm an idiot, but I'm remembering that right. If Sauce is generational, he's the number 1 pick. Like the generational guy is the number 1 pick. So I think he could turn out to be like a generational type talent, like in terms of him coming to the NFL and being the best quarterback in the NFL. But when he was drafted, he wasn't generational. I trust me, I love Sauce. I was Sauce's number 1 advocate for a lot of the season. A lot of guys were like, "Oh, maybe at 10." What? 10? You didn't watch him. You didn't watch him. You said 10. Plenty of people were saying maybe him at 10. Are also people now who are dropping their knees for him. But my thing with the draft was Hutchinson, Sauce, just because Hutchinson plays a more valuable position and it's harder to get in corners. Would I trade Hutchinson for Sauce now? No. Sauce is the best player in that draft, hence why he didn't win Rookie of the Year. But in the draft, he wasn't. So. Let's see. Sauce, generational. You should definitely do shrooms. Sure. Hey, it would affect my job greatly. I would get fired. When I'm 52 years old, retired, maybe. I'm probably more open-minded than you think I am. Sure. I'll come stream. So let's see. You know what's asked the QB since, dude? Even minus 1 year of Fitzpatrick, it was asked. The quarterback since 2010. Like, yes, Sanchez was okay at the very best, but he was also okay with the number 1 defense, the number 1 running game, number 1 offensive line in the league. Sanchez on the Darnold or Geno Jets would be very, very bad. So we've seen one solid quarterback year, and that was more Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker being absolute savages. So Rodgers, Carr, that's it. I'm with that. Yeah, no, Matt Ryan regressed heavily. Okay, option 7, maybe he's below Tannehill, Garoppolo for me, but no. And is he making like a decent amount of money? I don't know his contract situation at all. So, can you please answer the super chat, dummy? Tony, I should refund you your money. I'm gonna refund your $5, and you can just never come and watch again. Like, why? Unless you're being a little bit like, come on. I apologize. There's 200 people to answer. I didn't see it. It is what it is. Matt, are you kidding me? Yeah, no. I apologize for not answering it. Roland was given 3 years. Why not give Zach his 3rd and final? Because if they fail, they're getting fired. And Darnold was never as bad as Zach was. Even in year 2, 3, he was never as bad as Zach was. They have a team ready to win. It's completely different situations. Darnold's year 3 was or even going into year 4, whatever it was, year 3, the team was nowhere ready to win. Now, if it was a situation where the Jets were a terrible team, not ready to compete, do you bring it back with Mike White and Zach Wilson, let them compete and see if he can, play well? If he plays well, you're not in a position to have a high draft pick. Okay, great. And he's your quarterback. If he sucks, you have that draft pick. The Jets roster is above that level right now. You have to. In the window they're in with AVT on a rookie contract, Sauce on a rookie contract, Wilson on a rookie contract, Brees on a rookie contract, MC2 on a rookie contract, all these guys on rookie contracts who have to get paid in a couple of years. You have to make your Super Bowl run now. That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. You have to make your Super Bowl run now. You're putting way too much talent on this roster up to Zach. Like you can't just say, okay, well, give him another year. The roster's in a completely different situation. Completely different. So I'm gonna fly through these. I said I was doing an hour and a half, and I'm at 2 hours. They're always out. Arizona Jet, I apologize, I missed this too. What if we miss on Carr, Lamar, and Rodgers? To me, tell me if I'm wrong. Past that, give me Prescott. I don't know if he's available, but give me Prescott, right? He's a guy who's 10 to 15 in the NFL, in my opinion. Yeah, a little bit of a down playoffs, whatever. Okay, sure. But he's in that 10 to 15 range, even worse, 16th, whatever. But you trade whatever you're going to trade from, let's say a third-round pick, whatever. He's owed like $30 million for the next 2 years. It's a very, very reasonable contract for a quarterback. I think Wentz is making near that this year. I think Goff is making near that. So you're putting him in a category with those guys in terms of what he's getting paid. And he's good enough to win. Now, when playoff games and stuff, how much of that fault, his fault, his offense's fault, his play caller's fault, that's a story for a different day. We have to study more. But he's my fourth option. Dak is my fourth option. So, see. Yeah, you're not gambling your career on Dak. That is not going to happen. They know they're on the hot seat. It's been multiple years without playoffs. They completely busted into the season. Okay, Zach, hopefully you work out. We have a lot of faith in you. Clearly, we benched you for Mike White, and even early or later in the year, Mike White wasn't healthy. We started Joe Flacco over you. They're not hitching their wagon to Zach. Ideally, sure, they get Rodgers and he works out eventually, but you're not hitching your wagon to him. BYU, your job right now. I don't know how old you are. I don't know if 15, 17, 30, 60. Whatever job you have right now, would you hitch your job on Zach Wilson, making whatever you're making? Now imagine you're making millions of dollars a year. Really came time to. I don't think you're gonna do it. That's realistically what it is. And especially if you have guys like Carr, Rodgers, all these guys available, and then you hitch your wagon to Zach Wilson. Jesus, dude, I would lose it. Julius Thomas, thank you. I was behind, but yes, Julius Thomas, correct. You guys were quick on that one. Why won't Joe Blewtt talk about Carr? It's funny, BYU, because you don't listen. Clearly enough, because I talked about it plenty last week. And one, you're talking about him in 7 games of a how many year sample size, right? And you're talking about him minus, in freezing temperatures. The Jets played in freezing temperatures once last year. I believe it's once. You're talking about Carr, and if you look at those games, there's a guy who actually broke it down. Go on YouTube and watch it. I don't necessarily agree with all this stuff, but it was broken down on YouTube. He played those games against like good Broncos teams, good Chiefs teams, good teams. It's not like he was playing the Jaguars, the Bears, the Lions in these games. He was playing the Chiefs, the Broncos, some other good teams. I think the Eagles were in there once. So, and even if so, it's a 7-game sample size of 9 years. That's what we're hitching your wagon to. You spelled my name wrong, 1, and 2, I talked about it last week. So you don't people just throw out stuff, but like I shouldn't acknowledge that, right? Like at the end of the day, should I even acknowledge if we all know he's wrong? I talked about it. I talked about it a lot last week for probably like half an hour. We talked about it, but again, 7-game sample size of 9 years. It's enough to say no, and he can never adjust to the cold ever. He's always going to suck in the cold. It has nothing to do with his offensive line. It has nothing to do with his defense. He sucks. Okay. Again, Zach Wilson was the reason we're 5-2. He was the sole reason. It wasn't Breece Hall. It wasn't the defense. He was the reason we won in Denver, right? Not Breece Hall 60-yard touchdown run, because wins aren't a running back stat. They are a quarterback stat. So Breece Hall, no effect. Again, Mark Sanchez, up to last year, was better than Matt Stafford. Stafford only won 1 playoff game, I think. Sanchez had fucking 2 in his first year. He's better than Stafford, right? Zach Wilson was better than Rodgers this year. At least at the start of the year. Rodgers was losing games. Zach was winning. He's better. Nothing to do with the team. Drama with Rodgers. Yeah, that's part of the problem. So we just talked about this, but I'm behind. So because he absolutely sucked massive donkey balls, and the team is hitching their wagon to a guy who is one of the bigger busts we've seen in the last 10 years at quarterback. Right? Like at least Blake Bortles had a good year. At least Geno had a couple of good games. Darnold had a couple of good games. Zach had a couple of his good games his rookie year. Last year he was balls. He had 1 or 2 decent games. That's about it. So, should the Jets pursue? It depends. I think it depends on Davis. Obviously, let's say Davis is here. I think they should pursue a wide receiver 4 in free agency or the draft if Davis is here. But Berrios is not on the roster for me. If it was up to me, you cannot pay that guy $7 million a year for being a bad punt returner last year, nothing on kick returns, and did nothing as a gadget player. He did nothing. What did he do? That was above a Jag player. He was a Jag last year, if not worse. I've seen like at least Jeremy Curley fair caught the ball when he should have. Jeremy Curley in his Jets career was much better than Berrios was last year as a punt returner, and he's hyped up as this all-pro Pro Bowl punt returner. He was so bad last year, so bad. Yeah, okay. I'm seeing some Zach stuff. It's just like we can just put out stuff with no evidence, and this is the show where like if anything we have evidence. I have every single game film for the most part, and we could literally see Zach staring at wide open guys, but it's LaFleur's fault. Partially his fault, sure, but he would literally miss wide open guys, both by his reads and his actual mechanics. He just missed them by 5 yards in the dirt. What are we doing here? How are we still on the Zach stuff? But with a name like BYU fan, maybe it's more understandable. So, regardless of development and all that stuff, like he didn't sabotage Zach's career. Zach was very, very bad. I've literally seen guys a 12-pack deep in MetLife parking lot hit passes that Zach was not hitting consistently on Sundays. In terms of not even just reads and going through the 1-2 and reading leverages, in terms of I have to hit this guy on a screen pass and I can't do it. But he's salvageable? You want to hit your career to that? No. Let's see. He's the worst draft pick we've had, minus my quarterback minus, I guess, Hackenberg. At least he played in games. But Gina was better, Sanchez was better, Darnold was better very easily with worse situations around them. I just hate talking about why are we talking about Zach still? So I'm gonna get better at just blanking people out. Like we have a response, we've done it. Joe, your best show was after the draft. When you were wasted playing PS game. Oh, I think I was talking shit about Xbox, playing people in Madden. But yes, I was very drunk after the first round of the draft. Because like at the end of the day, like I enjoy doing streams and talking to you guys, but like I have my friends and stuff like that. Like I want to obviously have a beer or two with them and watch the draft and do all that stuff. Like I enjoy doing this, but I also need to spend time with real people. Not that you guys are fake, but you know what I mean. Like I gotta hang out with the dudes. So keep going through. I'm a couple minutes behind, and once I get to the end, I'm to the end. And the show has to end. Trayvon Walker, yes, I apologize. I had a very, very large brain fart on who was there. Redraft 2022, Sauce is number 1. Yes, he is. But I'm saying like maybe he should have been viewed as generational. Maybe, but he was not generational at the time. If you feel what I'm saying. It's not Sauce's people. Frankie knew. Yeah, I'm going to say the earliest people I saw on that, to be completely transparent, me, Kyle was very early, Scott was very early. I don't know about Frankie. I don't know. I couldn't speak. You could if you're saying he was there in January on Sauce, then okay, Frankie as well, but I'm not sure. Okay, keep moving on. Okay, Jordan Victor, appreciate the super chat. We need a backup quarterback and a starter. Zach should be third string quarterback as a project. Bring Mike White back. It depends on who you bring as a starter. Like Mike White's going to want what let's say $5 to $10 million. Let's just call it $8 million a year, which might be a little bit low. Let's say $7 to $8 million a year. Can you pay Rodgers $45 million a year and Mike White $7 million a year? I don't know. That might be a lot. So if the Jets get one of the bigger quarterbacks, I don't think Mike White's back. But do I agree with Zach being back to develop? Yeah, because you're not going to get much from him anyway. So develop him, see what happens. But if you get Rodgers, okay, I'm more to developing Zach. If you get Carr, you're expecting him to be here for 3, 4, 5 years, and then by that point, Zach is gone anyway. So I think it's much more realistic if you trade him with a Carr than a Rodgers. If Rodgers here, keep Zach. Why not? Carr is coming to town. I'm hoping for. And the thing is, like, what weren't like Stafford Goff trade happened like February 10th? Was it before the Super Bowl or right after the Super Bowl? So it's gonna happen quick, especially with Carr's obviously the $15 million a year thing, or the February 15th thing with the contract becoming guaranteed. So what round are we looking to draft inside linebacker? Like sneakers to boots, like I think you know the answer to this. Like I'm going to say it depends on how the draft falls. It depends on what to do in free agency. Like realistically, that's the only right answer. Because what if they get a trade for a tackle, they sign a big time safety, and the best draft inside linebacker in the draft is worth a 13th overall pick. You don't have a need at tackle or at safety. Can you draft from there? Like yeah, but realistically, I think it's probably around 2, 3, 4 thing. You bring back Quincy, you bring back another mid-tier guy, maybe Quan, and you develop a guy. I don't think you're drafting a guy to start. Now, again, with me saying that, with me acknowledging that you might spend more on offense and you might have to have a second round, third round guy starting inside linebacker, possible. But I think it's more likely a developmental guy, third, fourth-ish round for inside linebacker. That's a position we're going to have to take a little bit of a hit on because you have bigger needs and safety, offensive line, etc. Because of the Jags game, yeah, that was disheartening, man. Lions game was disheartening. Jags game was miserable. The Seahawks game, like I'm watching with my wife, the first run of the game, I'm like, it's over. She's like, you're not mad. I'm like, I'm numb. At a certain point, I get like I'm mad when it actually matters, but then I get numb. She's like, yeah, well, it is what it is. Like I barely watched the Dolphins game, which is crazy. I watched the broadcast, but to me, that's barely watching. Barely watching. Okay. Zach was 15% of the problem. You're right. I agree. I can't fight anymore. He was 15% of the problem. 15%. How far we have come. Mike White's going to be a Cowboy. Let's see it. I already have. Okay. I appreciate you guys. It's 8:17. I still got to eat and go to sleep. I got to work at midnight. I hope my mic sound better. If you could, if you're a person who listens and kind of know there's people who like comment after, let me know if the mic sounds better. If not, I'll try to adjust it than the prior mic. Again, I'm going to have some decorations and green lights and all that shit up eventually, hopefully next week as I move downstairs. I appreciate all of you, and I will be back next Thursday at 6 o'clock with Kyle Smith. And again, Kyle solo. Maybe I'll bring like Nania or another JetX guy like every other couple of weeks or whatever. I don't necessarily do guests. It's just, unless it's like Marcus Coleman or a guy like played football, because if we start getting the film stuff, I'm not discrediting anybody. I just want to be able to talk some film stuff and like at least have a knowledge like background in film. So I'll bring like maybe Marcus Coleman in a couple of weeks. We'll do like a film review or for a live stream. But appreciate you guys. I will see you next week.